The champagne glass shattered against marble with a sound that cut through polite conversation like a gunshot. Elena Voss stood frozen at the center of the lakeside terrace, her father's hand still gripping her wrist, his smile never wavering even as 30 pairs of eyes turned toward them. "Sign it tonight," he whispered, loud enough only for her to hear, "or I pull the funding tomorrow morning." She'd built her firm with her own hands, every blueprint a piece of her soul, and now the man who'd taught her to dream was dismantling those dreams, clause by clause. Across the room, a stranger in a gray suit put down his drink and started walking toward them, his expression unreadable, but his stride deliberate. Elena didn't know his name yet. She didn't know he was about to change everything. Before we dive into this story of corporate warfare, hidden motives, and one woman's fight for independence, I want to invite you on this journey. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this opening grabbed you, hit that like button. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. The Alpine Lake Resort sat like a jewel against the Montana mountains, all timber and glass and carefully cultivated elegance. It was the kind of place where deals worth millions got sealed over whiskey, where handshakes mattered more than contracts, and where people like Elena Voss were supposed to know their place. Elena knew her place. She just refused to stay in it. She stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, nursing a glass of sparkling water she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. The corporate retreat her father had insisted she attend was exactly what she'd expected. A performance. Investment partners glad-handing each other, her sister Marissa working the room like she owned it, and somewhere in the mix, the architectural contract that was supposed to be Elena's big break being discussed without her. 28 years old, and she'd already learned that being Victor Voss's daughter meant people smiled at you while looking through you. "You look like you're planning an escape route." Elena turned. The man who'd spoken was tallish, maybe 6'1", with the kind of face that didn't quite fit the expensive suit he wore. Sharp jaw, yes. Confident posture, definitely. But there was something about his eyes, dark brown, observant, that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else too. "Is it that obvious?" she asked. "Only to someone doing the same thing." He extended a hand. "Ryan Hale." Elena Voss. His handshake was firm but brief, professional. "I know. You're the architect everyone's pretending not to talk about." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Your father's been circulating renderings from your firm all evening," Ryan said, nodding toward a cluster of men in suits near the bar. "Prairie Sky Design, right? The sustainable housing project in Bozeman made some waves. Smart use of passive solar orientation." Elena felt something loosen in her chest. "You actually looked at the work." "I did my homework." Ryan's mouth quirked, not quite a smile. "Comes with the job. Financial auditor. I'm here reviewing the acquisition structures for the merger." "Ah." Elena's guard went back up. "So you work for my father." "I work for the truth in balance sheets," Ryan corrected, "which occasionally puts me at odds with everyone." He paused, watching her face, including powerful men who don't like questions. Before Elena could respond, a hand landed on her shoulder, familiar, possessive. Her father's cologne arrived before his voice did. "Elena, sweetheart, there you are." Victor Voss was 62 and looked 50, all silver hair and tailored confidence. His smile could sell ice in winter. "I see you've met Ryan. Brilliant man, absolutely ruthless with numbers." "We were just introducing ourselves," Elena said carefully. "Wonderful, wonderful." Victor's grip tightened just slightly on her shoulder. "Elena, I need you for a moment. Some of the partners want to discuss the mixed-use development proposal." Translation: "Come be displayed and dismissed." Elena's jaw tensed. "I thought that meeting was tomorrow morning." "Plans change, sweetheart." Victor was already steering her away. "Excuse us, Ryan." Ryan nodded, but Elena caught something in his expression. A flicker of recognition, maybe. Of understanding. Then Victor was guiding her across the terrace toward a semicircle of men she recognized from the firm's investor presentations, and the moment was gone. "Gentlemen," Victor announced warmly, "my daughter Elena, the creative genius behind Prairie Sky Design." Polite nods, evaluating looks. One of them, Gerald something, real estate development, barely glanced up from his phone. We were just discussing your proposal for the Riverside project, Victor continued. His hand was still on her shoulder. Elena wanted to shrug it off and couldn't. Beautiful concept work, really beautiful. Thank you, Elena said. The integration of green space with commercial units addresses both community needs and revenue generation. The sustainability metrics alone. Yes, all very impressive, Gerald interrupted, finally looking at her. The question is execution. You've done smaller projects. Good work, don't get me wrong. But this scope? This budget? He shook his head. Lot of risk. Elena's spine straightened. Every project carries risk. That's why we build contingencies into the timeline and maintain strict oversight protocols. Of course, another man cut in. Thomas somebody, finance background. But perhaps with more experienced oversight. Voss Development has the infrastructure, the established relationships with contractors, city planning, which is why I've proposed a partnership structure that maintains creative control while leveraging those resources, Elena said evenly. She'd rehearsed this. She'd known they'd push back. Prairie Sky Design retains design authority and project management, while Voss Development provides back-end support. Interesting approach, Gerald said in a tone that meant the opposite. He looked at Victor. What's your take, Vic? Victor's hand squeezed her shoulder once, gentle as a threat. I think my daughter has a vision. That's never been the question. He smiled down at Elena. But Thomas raises valid points. Maybe we need to discuss the structural details more carefully. As a family, the words landed like a cage door closing. I've already structured the proposal, Elena started, but Victor was already moving. Let's table this for tonight, he told the group. Give everyone time to review the updated projections. Elena, why don't we talk privately? Sort out some of these details before tomorrow's session. It wasn't a question. Elena felt the trap closing, the updated projections she hadn't seen, the private talk that would become pressure to accept terms that weren't hers. The session tomorrow where decisions would be made about her work, her firm, her future. Actually, a voice said from behind them, I need to borrow Elena for a moment. They all turned. Ryan Hale stood there, tablet in hand, expression neutral and professional. Ms. Voss, I have some questions about the timeline projections in your sustainability report. We're reconciling data for the acquisition filing, and there's a discrepancy in the third quarter estimates I need clarified before I can finalize my review. Victor's smile thinned. Ryan, surely that can wait. Unfortunately, no. Ryan's tone was apologetic but firm. The filing deadline is Monday morning. If there's a material misstatement in the environmental impact section, it could flag the entire acquisition for SEC review. He looked at Victor with perfect professional courtesy. I'm sure you understand due diligence. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Victor's hand dropped from Elena's shoulder. Of course. Regulations. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Elena, find me when you're done. We still need to talk. Absolutely, Elena said, not meaning it. Ryan gestured toward the far end of the terrace, and Elena followed, her heart hammering. They walked past clusters of conversation, past the bar, all the way to the corner where the view opened onto dark mountains and darker lake. Only when they were out of earshot did Ryan stop. There's no discrepancy, he said quietly. Elena stared at him. What? In your sustainability report, it's clean. Well documented, actually. Ryan leaned against the railing, looking out at the water. You just looked like you needed an exit. Something cracked in Elena's chest. Not quite relief, not quite gratitude. Something more complicated. You didn't have to do that, she said. I know. Ryan glanced at her. But I've seen enough rooms full of men explaining things to brilliant women to recognize the dynamic. Figured you could use a professional interruption. Elena laughed, short and sharp. A professional interruption. Is that what we're calling it? Sounds better than corporate rescue mission. Ryan's mouth twitched. Besides, I wasn't lying about the deadline, and I do actually need to review your firm's financial documentation as part of the acquisition audit. Right. Elena looked down at her hands. They were shaking slightly. She curled them into fists. The acquisition. My father's specialty. Acquiring things. Ryan said nothing, which was somehow more supportive than platitudes would have been. Elena took a breath. He's going to push me to sign over operational control of Prairie Sky. Fold it into Voss Development as a subsidiary, put Marissa in charge of project allocation, turn me into a creative consultant with no actual authority. The words came out harder than she'd intended. That's what tonight was. That's what all of this is. Is that what you want? No. The word came out fierce. I built Prairie Sky from nothing. Every client, every project, every late night fixing contractor mistakes, and calming down nervous investors. It's mine. I'm not handing it over to become my father's architectural department. Ryan nodded slowly. Then don't. Elena almost laughed. You make it sound simple. I didn't say simple, I said don't. Ryan turned to face her fully. Look, I've spent the last 3 weeks reviewing Voss Development's acquisition structures. I know how your father operates. He builds beautiful traps, complicated contracts that look like partnerships but function like buyouts. He's good at it. But here's the thing about traps. His expression hardened. They only work if you walk into them. He controls the funding pipeline, Elena said. The investor relationships, the political connections that get projects approved. Without Voss Development's backing, Prairie Sky is just another small firm fighting for scraps. Maybe, Ryan acknowledged, or maybe you're more valuable than you think. Why else would he be pushing so hard? The question hung in the air between them. Elena's mind raced. The Riverside project was huge. $80 million in development costs, 3 years of construction, her most ambitious design to date. It would establish Prairie Sky as a major player, prove she could handle large-scale commercial work. But her father had positioned himself as the essential partner, the only path forward. Except Ryan had a point. If she was so inexperienced, so risky, why the pressure? Why the careful maneuvering? You think he needs me, Elena said slowly. I think your work is the only thing making Voss Development look innovative instead of stale, Ryan replied. The acquisition I'm auditing, half the value proposition is access to cutting-edge sustainable design. That's not your father's expertise, that's yours. Elena felt something shift, a reframing. So why would he want to absorb Prairie Sky instead of just maintaining a partnership? Control. Ryan's voice went flat. If you stay independent, you can say no. You can take your talents elsewhere. You can build something that competes with him. But if you're under Voss Development's umbrella, legally and financially bound, he shrugged, then you're his asset, not his competitor. The words settled over Elena like cold water, clarifying, bracing. You're not just an auditor, are you? She said. Ryan's smile was brief and didn't reach his eyes. I'm a single father with a 7-year-old daughter who asks hard questions I can't bullshit my way through, teaches you to see systems for what they are. He straightened from the railing. Look, I'm not telling you what to do, your business, your call. But if you want someone to look at the actual numbers before you make any decisions, I can do that, confidentially, off the record. Elena studied him. There was no angle she could see, no obvious benefit to him, just a stranger offering help. Why? She asked. Ryan considered the question. Because I have a daughter, he said finally, and I want her to grow up in a world where talented women don't get maneuvered out of what they built. Call it self-interest. He pulled a business card from his wallet, handed it to her. Think about it. Before Elena could respond, voices drifted over from the main terrace. Her father's laugh, distinctive and commanding. Marissa's higher-pitched agreement. I should go, Elena said, pocketing the card. Thank you for the interruption. Any time, Ryan nodded toward the terrace. Fair warning, your father's going to ask what we discussed. Have a story ready. I'll tell him you were insufferably thorough about environmental compliance documentation. Perfect. That's exactly my brand. Elena found herself smiling despite everything. Then she walked back toward the lion's den, feeling slightly less alone than she had an hour ago. The conversation with her father happened exactly as predicted, in Victor's suite 40 minutes later. Elena sat in an overstuffed leather chair while Victor poured himself scotch and Marissa perched on the arm of the sofa, watching like a well-dressed hawk. So, Victor began, swirling his drink. Ryan Hale. Interesting guy. Very by the book. He certainly takes his job seriously, Elena said neutrally. Too seriously, some might say. Victor's tone was light, but Elena knew better. Starting to think we should have gone with a different auditing firm. Someone more collaborative. Translation: someone who could be influenced. He seems competent to me, Elena said. Marissa laughed softly. Competent. That's one word for it. She examined her nails. Perfect manicure, of course. I heard he practically interrogated the accounting team for 3 hours yesterday. Very intense. That's his job, Elena pointed out. Sure. Victor sat down across from her, all paternal concern. But let's talk about you, sweetheart. About Prairie Sky. About this incredible opportunity we're building together. Here it comes, Elena thought. The Riverside project is going to put you on the map, Victor continued, but it needs infrastructure, support, the kind of stability that only comes from integration with a larger firm. We've discussed partnership terms already, Elena said carefully. Collaborative agreement? Shared resources? I'm talking about something bigger. Victor leaned forward. Full integration. Prairie Sky becomes the design division of Voss Development. You'd have a senior title, creative authority, your name on every project, but with the backing of our full operation, legal, finance, construction management, political relationships. Everything. Everything except independence, Elena said. Victor's smile cooled. Independence is overrated when you're trying to build something that lasts. You're 28 years old, Elena. Brilliant, yes. Talented, absolutely. But inexperienced in the realities of large-scale development. Let me protect you from the mistakes I made at your age. By taking away my ability to make my own decisions? By giving you a foundation to build on? Victor's voice hardened slightly. The Riverside project won't happen without Voss Development's backing. You know that. The investors are comfortable because of our track record. The city planning department trusts our execution. This isn't about control, sweetheart. It's about reality. Marissa chimed in, her voice honey-sweet. Plus, think about the benefits package. Full health coverage, retirement matching, profit sharing in the division. You wouldn't have to worry about payroll anymore, or liability insurance, or any of that administrative headache. You could just focus on design. While we focus on running your company, Elena thought. I appreciate the offer, she said, keeping her voice level, but I need time to think about it. Review the terms with my own legal counsel. Elena. Victor set down his glass with a soft clink. I need an answer by Sunday. That's 2 days. The investor meeting is Monday morning. They need to know the structure. If you're in, we move forward with Riverside. If you're not, he spread his hands. We'll have to reconsider the whole project. There it was. The trap, elegant and brutal. Sign over your company or lose everything. Elena's throat felt tight. You'd kill the project. I'd have to reevaluate, Victor corrected. Without integrated design capacity, the risk profile changes. The investors might not be comfortable. These things happen. Marissa stood, smoothing her skirt. It's a big decision, Elena. We understand, but Dad's right. This is about protecting you, making sure you don't end up like those other boutique firms that burn through their capital on one ambitious project and can't recover. We've seen it happen. Yes, Elena said quietly. I'm sure you have. She stood. Victor rose too, all concern again. Think about it carefully, sweetheart. Talk to your team if you need to. But remember, this is family looking out for family. Nobody wants your success more than we do. Elena didn't trust herself to respond. She just nodded and left, walking down the hushed hallway toward her own room, her mind churning. Ryan's card was still in her pocket. She could feel it there, a small weight, a possibility. By the time she reached her door, she'd made a decision. Shkot. Ryan's phone buzzed at 6:30 Saturday morning. He was already awake. Years of single parenting had rewired his sleep schedule. Sitting on the small balcony of his room with coffee and spreadsheets, trying to reconcile some questionable expense reports in Voss Development's subsidiary structures. The text was from an unknown number. This is Elena Voss. Can we meet? Away from the resort, I need someone to look at a contract. Ryan stared at the message for a moment, thinking about his daughter Lily, back home in Denver with his sister, probably still asleep. Thinking about the complications of getting involved in what was clearly a family power struggle. Thinking about all the professional reasons to stay neutral. Then he typed, "Coffee shop in town? I can be there in an hour." Her response came fast. "Thank you." The coffee shop was called Mountain Grounds, located in the small tourist town 15 minutes from the resort. Ryan got there first, claimed a corner table, and was halfway through a mediocre Americano when Elena arrived. She looked different in daylight, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her dark hair pulled back. Younger, somehow. More vulnerable. She carried a leather messenger bag that looked expensive and well-used. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from him. "Of course." Ryan gestured to the counter. "Coffee?" "Already had 3 cups. If I have more, I'll vibrate through the floor." Elena pulled a document from her bag, thick, bound, official-looking. "This is the proposed acquisition agreement. My father gave it to me 6 weeks ago. I've read it maybe 20 times, had a lawyer review it, even walked through it with my firm's accountant. But something feels wrong, and I can't pin down what." Ryan took the document, flipped through the first few pages. Standard merger language, mostly. Then he hit the exhibits in the back, and his jaw tightened. "Your lawyer reviewed this?" he asked. "Yes. Said it was aggressive, but standard for this kind of deal." "Who was the lawyer?" Elena hesitated. "Richard Klein. He's done work for Voss Development before, but he was supposed to be representing me independently on this." Ryan looked up. "Elena, this isn't aggressive. This is a trap." Her face paled. "What?" Ryan flipped to section 12, pointed to a paragraph dense with legalese. "See this? It's a cross-default provision. Basically, if Prairie Sky defaults on any obligation to Voss Development, payments, deadlines, compliance requirements, it triggers automatic transfer of majority ownership. Not renegotiation, not restructuring. Immediate transfer. But we wouldn't default," Elena said. "We've never missed a deadline." "You've never done a project this big." Ryan kept reading, his expression darkening. "And look at the definitions they're using for material breach. Late submission of monthly reports, failure to maintain specified insurance levels. Even disagreements about design decisions can be classified as breach if they materially impact project timelines." He looked up. "Elena, this contract is designed to make default inevitable." She was very still. "Show me." For the next 40 minutes, Ryan walked her through it. The payment schedule that required Prairie Sky to front design costs before Voss Development reimbursed them, creating cash flow pressure. The approval process that gave Victor final say on all major decisions, but made Elena responsible for meeting timelines even if approvals were delayed. The insurance requirements that would force Prairie Sky to pay premiums that were 3 times standard market rates. "It's elegant," Ryan said, and his voice was cold. "Every clause individually looks reasonable. But together, it's a financial guillotine. You'd be bleeding cash from day one, always behind on deadlines, always vulnerable. And the moment you slip, which is statistically guaranteed given these conditions, they take the company." Elena's hands were flat on the table. "My lawyer didn't catch this." "Your lawyer works for your father." Ryan closed the document. "I'd bet money he's getting a bonus when this deal closes." "I trusted him. That was the plan." Elena stood abruptly, walked to the window, stared out at the mountains. Ryan gave her space, sipped his cold coffee, and waited. When she turned back, her expression had changed. Something harder had settled in her eyes. "Can you help me?" she asked. "Help you what, specifically?" "Fight this. Find a way out. Build a case." Elena came back to the table. "You said you work for the truth in balance sheets. I'm asking you to work for me, confidentially. I'll pay your standard rate, whatever it is, but I need someone who can actually see what's happening here." Ryan considered her. 28 years old, facing down her own father and a corporate structure built to crush her. Most people would fold, sign the papers, take the title, rationalize it as pragmatism. But Elena Voss wasn't most people. "I can't represent you officially," Ryan said slowly. "Conflict of interest with the acquisition audit, but I can review your options, show you what the numbers actually say, help you understand the leverage points. That's all I'm asking." "It won't be pretty," Ryan warned. "Your father is going to fight back. Your family is going to pressure you. This could get ugly." "It's already ugly," Elena said. "I just didn't want to see it." Ryan pulled out his laptop. "Okay. Let's start with your firm's current financial position. I need to see everything: cash reserves, accounts receivable, existing contracts, debt obligations. Complete picture." Elena nodded, reaching for her bag. I brought copies. Of course you did. Ryan almost smiled. You're more prepared than half my corporate clients. I'm an architect. We plan for contingencies. Good. Ryan opened a spreadsheet. Because we're about to need a lot of them. They worked through lunch, through the afternoon, barely noticing when the coffee shop staff changed shifts. Elena pulled up files on her laptop, cross-referenced bank statements, explained the timeline of her firm's growth. Ryan built models, tested scenarios, identified weak points in the proposed agreement. By 4 o'clock, they had a clear picture. Prairie Sky Design was solvent, but not liquid. Elena had assets, contracts, reputation, intellectual property, but limited cash reserves. A sustained legal fight would drain her resources fast. The good news, Ryan said, rubbing his eyes, is that you're not actually obligated to sign anything. Your father can't force you into this agreement. He can kill the Riverside project. Yes, which would hurt, no question, but it wouldn't destroy you. Ryan turned his laptop toward her, showed her the projections. Look, you've got 3 existing contracts that will carry you through the next 8 months. You'd have to cut costs. Maybe let go of your junior associate temporarily, but you'd survive. Then you rebuild. Take on smaller projects. Grow organically without Voss Development's shadow. Elena stared at the numbers. Start over. Basically, yes. After 4 years of building Prairie Sky, after proving myself, establishing relationships, creating a portfolio. Her voice was flat. Just walk away from all of that. I didn't say it was fair, Ryan said quietly, but it might be the only way to stay independent. Elena closed her eyes. Ryan watched her, saw the exhaustion and frustration and stubborn determination warring in her expression. He recognized it. He'd worn that same look 3 years ago when his ex-wife had tried to use their daughter as leverage in the divorce, claiming Ryan's work schedule made him an unfit parent. He'd fought that battle and won, but it had cost him. There might be another option, Ryan said slowly. Elena opened her eyes. What? Find a different investor for Riverside. Someone who'll back your vision without requiring you to sign over your company. In 2 days? Before my father's deadline? No, Ryan admitted. That's impossible. But you don't actually have to meet his deadline. That's artificial pressure, not a real constraint. The actual investor meeting is Monday, but nothing gets finalized that day. Deals like this take weeks to structure. Elena frowned. So I just refused to sign? Tell my father no? Yes. And then what? He pulls Voss Development's support, tells the investors Prairie Sky isn't reliable, poisons every relationship I've built in this industry. Elena's laugh was bitter. I know how my father operates, Ryan. If I say no, he doesn't just walk away. He makes sure I can't succeed anywhere else. Ryan leaned back in his chair. She was right, and they both knew it. Victor Voss had the power, the connections, the institutional weight. Elena had talent and determination, which wasn't nothing. But in a straight fight, the outcome was predictable. Then we don't fight straight, Ryan said. Meaning? Meaning we find his weak point. Every system has one. Every contract has a clause that can be leveraged. Every powerful man has something he wants more than control. Ryan's mind was already working through possibilities. Your father wants this acquisition to go through. That's his priority. If we can figure out why, what he's really getting out of this deal, then we can find leverage. Elena considered this. You think there's something in the acquisition structure? Something that requires Prairie Sky's involvement? Maybe. Or maybe it's reputational. Maybe it's financial. I don't know yet. Ryan started packing up his laptop. But I'm going to find out. I've got full access to Voss Development's books as part of the audit. I can dig into the details, see what connects to what. That's risky for you, Elena said. If my father finds out you're helping me, he won't. And even if he did, I'm doing my job. Auditor's responsibility is to the integrity of the financial reporting, not to make deals happen. Ryan stood. Besides, I've dealt with men like your father before. They're only intimidating until you realize they need you more than you need them. Elena stood too, shouldering her bag. I'm not sure that applies to me. It does. You just haven't seen it yet. Ryan held out his hand. Trust me, I'm very good at finding what's hidden in balance sheets. Elena shook his hand. Her grip was strong, decisive. Okay, what do I do in the meantime? Nothing. Go back to the resort, act normal, don't tip your hand. If your father pushes for an answer before Sunday, tell him you're still reviewing the terms. Be vague, seem uncertain. I am uncertain. Perfect. Use that. Ryan released her hand. I'll text you when I find something, probably tomorrow night. We'll meet again, figure out next steps. Elena nodded, then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Small, genuine. You know, when I first saw you last night, I thought you were just another corporate drone, no offense. None taken. I cultivate that impression. People underestimate drones. Clearly. Elena headed for the door, then paused, looking back. Ryan? Thank you. For seeing me. For treating this like it matters. It does matter, Ryan said simply. You built something real. That's worth fighting for. After she left, Ryan sat back down, opened his laptop again, and started digging. Somewhere in Voss Development's financial structure there was an answer, a connection, a dependency, a pressure point. He had 36 hours to find it. Outside, the Montana mountains stood silent and indifferent, holding their secrets. But Ryan Hale had built a career on making secrets talk. He got back to work. Ryan spent Saturday night in his hotel room with 3 monitors worth of spreadsheets, 2 pots of coffee, and a growing sense that Victor Voss was hiding something significant. The acquisition documents were clean on the surface, almost too clean. Every subsidiary aligned perfectly, every valuation justified with market comparables, every projection conservatively optimistic. It read like a textbook example of corporate due diligence, which was exactly the problem. Real companies were messy. They had divisions that underperformed, contracts that went sideways, unexpected expenses that didn't fit neatly into categories. Voss Development's books looked like someone had scrubbed them with industrial solvent and then polished them until they gleamed. Ryan knew that shine. He'd seen it before in companies cooking their numbers. He pulled up the subsidiary structures again, started tracing cash flows between entities. Voss Development owned 12 smaller companies, construction firms, property management operations, a title insurance business, standard vertical integration for a developer. But one subsidiary kept showing unusual patterns. Mountain Ridge Capital, listed as an investment vehicle, showed regular transfers that didn't match typical investment activity. Ryan dug deeper. Mountain Ridge had made a series of loans to Voss Development over the past 18 months, totaling $42 million. The loans were structured as intercompany debt, perfectly legal, and the interest rates were reasonable. But the timing was interesting. Each loan coincided with a major project milestone, almost like Victor was using his own subsidiary to inject cash when the parent company needed it. That suggested liquidity problems. Voss Development might look stable on paper, but if they were borrowing from their own entities to cover operational costs, they were tighter on cash than the balance sheet suggested. Ryan pulled up the acquisition target's information next. Meridian Holdings, a smaller development firm with strong regional presence and notably substantial cash reserves. $60 million in liquid assets according to the preliminary filings. There it was. The real reason for the acquisition. Victor Voss needed Meridian's cash to cover Voss Development's liquidity gap, which meant he needed this deal to close smoothly, quickly, without complications that might spook Meridian's board or trigger deeper financial scrutiny. Ryan sat back thinking, if Victor was financially vulnerable, that changed everything. He couldn't afford delays. He couldn't risk the acquisition falling through, which meant he needed the Riverside project to proceed as planned, needed Prairie Sky's innovative designs to make Voss Development look dynamic and forward-thinking, needed Elena cooperative and controlled. But if Elena walked away, if she pulled Prairie Sky from the partnership and the Riverside project collapsed, the acquisition timeline would be compromised. Meridian's board would start asking questions. Other auditors might look closer at Voss Development's financial health. Ryan picked up his phone, started typing a text to Elena, then stopped. It was past midnight. This could wait until morning. He needed to verify a few more details anyway, make sure he wasn't building conclusions on incomplete data. He went back to the spreadsheets following the money. Across the resort, Elena wasn't sleeping either. She sat on her balcony wrapped in a blanket, staring at the lake and thinking about the last time she'd trusted her father's advice. She'd been 23, fresh out of graduate school with a master's in architecture and a head full of ideas about sustainable design. Her father had encouraged her to start her own firm, had even helped with the initial capital. "You're too talented to work for someone else," he'd said. "Build something that's yours." For 2 years, she'd thought he was being supportive. Then she'd landed her first major project, a community center in Billings. And Victor had offered to help with the contractor relationships, the permitting, the budget management. Just family helping family. By the time construction was done, Voss Development's name was on half the contracts, and Victor had positioned himself as the project's co-developer. Elena's role had been reduced to design consultant in the press releases. She'd fought with him about it. He'd been hurt, confused. "I was protecting you," he'd said, "making sure you didn't get taken advantage of. You can't be naive in this business, sweetheart." Elena had believed him. She'd rationalized it as inexperience on her part, gratitude that the project had succeeded at all. She'd let it go. But she'd also started keeping Voss Development at arm's length after that, building Prairie Sky's portfolio independently, maintaining careful boundaries. She'd thought she'd learned the lesson, apparently not well enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "Dad's worried about you, says you seemed stressed tonight. Want to grab breakfast tomorrow?" "Just us?" Elena stared at the message, trying to decode it. Was this genuine concern or reconnaissance? With Marissa, it was hard to tell. Her older sister had always been their father's protege, the business-minded daughter who understood corporate strategy and political maneuvering. They'd been close as kids, but somewhere in their 20s, the distance had grown into something neither of them acknowledged. Elena typed back, "Maybe. I'll let you know in the morning. Non-committal. Safe." She set the phone down and pulled the blanket tighter. The problem was she still loved her father, still wanted his approval, his pride, his belief that she was capable. That made it harder to see him clearly, to accept that his protection might actually be control, that his help might be a cage dressed in concern. Ryan had seen it immediately. A stranger, looking at the numbers with no emotional investment, had understood what Elena had been avoiding for years. Her father was trying to own her. The thought made her chest tight. She stood up, went inside, poured herself water she didn't drink. When her phone buzzed again an hour later, she almost didn't check it. But it was Ryan. "Found something. Not good. Can you meet tomorrow morning? Early. Same place." Elena typed back with shaking hands. "How early? 6. Before anyone at the resort is awake. I'll be there." She didn't sleep after that. Just lay in bed watching the ceiling slowly brighten as dawn approached, trying not to think about what Ryan had found, trying not to imagine the confrontation that was coming. At 5:30, she gave up and got dressed. Ryan was already at Mountain Grounds when Elena arrived, sitting at the same corner table with his laptop and a grim expression. He'd clearly been there a while. 2 empty coffee cups sat beside his current one, and his eyes had the particular tired sharpness of someone who'd worked through the night. "You look terrible," Elena said, sitting down. "Thanks. You look anxious." "I am anxious." Elena glanced around the empty coffee shop. The barista was barely conscious, wiping down counters with mechanical efficiency. "What did you find?" Ryan turned his laptop toward her. "Your father is broke." Elena blinked. "What?" "Not personally broke. Voss Development is hemorrhaging cash. They've been covering it with intercompany loans from subsidiaries, shifting money between entities to maintain the appearance of liquidity. But the underlying business is struggling." Ryan pulled up a spreadsheet showing cash flows over the past 2 years. "See these patterns? Every quarter they're borrowing more to cover operating costs. They're not insolvent yet, but they're on the edge." Elena stared at the numbers, trying to process. How is that possible? They just completed that hotel development in Missoula, the mixed-use project in Helena. Those were huge successes. On paper, yes. In reality? Ryan scrolled through more documents. The Missoula hotel is 90% owned by the lenders. Voss Development's actual equity stake is minimal. The Helena project is being sold in pieces to cover construction debt. Your father has been building his reputation on projects he doesn't really own. But the investor presentations, Elena said slowly, the portfolio he shows, it's all legitimate work. It's legitimate. It's just heavily leveraged, which is fine if you can manage the debt service and keep new projects flowing. But if anything disrupts that cycle, a project delay, a financing gap, a market downturn. The whole structure becomes unstable. Ryan looked at her directly. That's why he needs the Meridian acquisition. They have 60 million in cash reserves. That's breathing room. That's survival. Elena felt like the ground was shifting under her. And Prairie Sky is the selling point that makes Voss Development attractive to Meridian's board. Your innovative designs, your sustainability credentials, your fresh approach to urban development. That's what makes this acquisition look like strategic growth instead of a desperate cash grab. Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. Your father needs you, Elena. He needs your firm, your reputation, your work. That's why he's pushing so hard for the integration. Not to protect you, to protect himself. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. Elena stood up, walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass. He lied to me, she said quietly. Yes. About everything, about helping me, about the Riverside project being an opportunity, about wanting my success. Her breath fogged the window. It was always about what I could do for him. Ryan said nothing, which Elena appreciated. Platitudes would have been insulting. After a moment, she turned back. What happens if I walk away? If I refuse to sign, pull Prairie Sky from the Riverside project, let this whole thing collapse? Honestly, the acquisition probably falls through. Meridian's board gets spooked by the complications, starts asking harder questions about Voss Development's financial health. Your father's house of cards becomes a lot more visible. Ryan paused. He'd be in trouble. Real trouble. Good, Elena said, and meant it. But Ryan shook his head. Think it through. If Voss Development collapses, a lot of people get hurt. Employees lose jobs. Ongoing projects get frozen. Contractors don't get paid. And your father will make sure everyone knows whose fault it is. Mine. Yes, he'll spin it that his ungrateful daughter torpedoed the family business out of selfishness. He'll burn every professional bridge you have. You'll survive it eventually, but it'll cost you years of rebuilding. Elena came back to the table, sat down hard. So I'm trapped either way. Sign over my company and become his puppet, or destroy my reputation trying to stay independent. Those are the obvious options, Ryan agreed. But there's a third path, which is leverage. Ryan pulled up a new document. Your father needs this acquisition to close. He needs Prairie Sky's involvement to make the deal attractive. That gives you negotiating power if you use it correctly. Elena leaned forward. How? You go to the meeting Monday. You present the Riverside project exactly as planned. You make Voss Development look brilliant and innovative and forward-thinking. Ryan met her eyes. But you make it crystal clear that Prairie Sky remains independent. You don't sign the integration agreement. You structure a pure partnership deal. Fixed fees for design services, clear scope boundaries, no equity transfer. Take it or leave it. He won't accept that. He doesn't have a choice. If he refuses, you walk, the Riverside project dies, and the acquisition gets complicated. Meridian's board starts asking why Victor's own daughter won't work with him. That's a huge red flag. Ryan's smile was sharp. He needs you more than you need him. You just have to be willing to walk away if he calls your bluff. Elena thought about it, testing the logic for weak points. What if he calls it? What if he lets the whole thing collapse rather than accept my terms? Then you walk away knowing you didn't compromise your independence. You rebuild Prairie Sky on your own terms. It's hard, but it's honest. Ryan closed his laptop. But I don't think he'll call it. Men like your father don't self-destruct. They adapt. They rationalize. They find ways to make it seem like it was their idea all along. You've dealt with men like my father before, Elena said. It wasn't a question. My ex-wife's attorney was a lot like him. Very smooth, very strategic, very good at making it seem like he was offering generous compromises while actually demanding total surrender. Ryan's expression went distant. Took me a while to learn how to recognize the pattern, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. What did you do? Called the bluff. Made it clear I'd go to court, take it public, fight for as long as it took. Suddenly, the generous compromise got a lot more actually generous. He focused back on Elena. Bullies rely on you being too scared or too tired to fight back. The moment you prove you're willing to endure the fight, they fold. Elena absorbed this. Outside, the sky was brightening toward full morning, the mountains sharp against pale blue. Somewhere across town, her father was probably just waking up, planning his strategy for extracting her signature today. Okay, she said. Walk me through it. What exactly do I say? They spent the next hour rehearsing. Ryan played her father, throwing out every manipulation tactic he could imagine. Emotional appeals about family loyalty, veiled threats about her career, rational arguments about market realities. Elena practiced responding with calm clarity, stating her position without justifying or defending it. You're offering me integration, she said for the 5th time. I'm countering with independent partnership. Those are the terms I can accept. But sweetheart, Ryan replied in his best Victor impression, the investors need stability. They need to know we're united. We are united. On the project deliverables, the timeline, the vision, but Prairie Sky's corporate structure isn't part of the negotiation. You're being unreasonable. I'm being clear about my boundaries. If that's unreasonable, we can end the discussion. Ryan dropped the act. Good. That's good. You sound confident without being aggressive, firm without being emotional. I don't feel confident, Elena admitted. Fake it. Confidence is mostly just being willing to tolerate other people's discomfort with your decisions. Ryan checked his watch. We should get back before people notice we're both missing. Right. Elena stood, gathering her things, then stopped. Ryan? Why are you doing this? He looked at her with those steady brown eyes. I told you, I have a daughter. That's not enough of a reason to put your own job at risk. Maybe not. Ryan stood too. But I spent 3 years watching talented people get crushed by systems designed to exploit them. I'm tired of watching it happen, and you're actually fighting back. That's worth supporting. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Gratitude, yes, but also recognition. Here was someone who saw the fight clearly and chose to stand in it anyway, not because it benefited him, but because it was right. Thank you, she said, and the words felt insufficient. Don't thank me yet. This could still blow up spectacularly. But Ryan smiled slightly, though I'm betting it won't. They drove back to the resort separately, arrived at different entrances, maintained careful distance in the lobby. Elena went straight to her room and found 3 missed calls from Marissa and a text from her father. Breakfast at 9, we need to talk. It was 7:30. She had 90 minutes. Elena showered, put on her most professional outfit, tailored pants, a jacket that made her feel armored, and rehearsed her lines in the mirror until they sounded natural. Then she sat down and drafted an email to her lawyer, the one who'd reviewed the original contract, thanking him politely for his time and informing him his services were no longer needed. She copied her accountant, her insurance broker, everyone who'd been part of her father's carefully constructed support network. Then she started fresh. Found a law firm in Seattle that specialized in independent business representation, sent them the integration agreement with a request for urgent review. Found a business banker who wasn't connected to Voss Development and scheduled a call for Monday afternoon. By 8:45, she'd built the skeleton of an independent operation. It wasn't complete, but it was started. She went downstairs feeling like she was wearing armor made of paper. Her father and Marissa were already seated at a private corner of the resort's restaurant, a quiet table with a view of the lake. Victor stood when Elena approached, all warmth and paternal affection. There she is. Coffee? Please. Elena sat, accepted the cup the server poured, added cream with steady hands. Marissa was watching her with sharp eyes. You look tired. Didn't sleep well. The mountain air can be disorienting, Victor said smoothly. He waited until the server left before continuing. So, I wanted to touch base before tonight's dinner with the investors, make sure we're all aligned on the presentation. Tonight, Elena had forgotten about the dinner. Of course there was a dinner. I'm ready to present the Riverside project, she said carefully. The renderings are finalized, the sustainability metrics are solid. It's strong work. It's brilliant work, Victor corrected, which is why we need to make sure the corporate structure supports it properly. Have you had a chance to think about our conversation? About integration? Here it was. Elena set down her coffee cup. I have, and I appreciate the offer, but I'm not comfortable with full integration. I'd like to propose an alternative structure. Victor's smile didn't change, but something cooled in his eyes. Alternative? A partnership agreement. Prairie Sky remains independent, provides design services for Riverside under a fixed-fee contract. Clear deliverables, clear timeline, clear boundaries. Marissa leaned forward. Elena, we've been over this. The investors need to see unified operations. They're not going to feel comfortable with a loosely connected boutique firm managing an $80 million design component. Then we'll need to make them comfortable, Elena said, because Prairie Sky isn't integrating. The silence that followed was heavy. Victor took a sip of coffee, set down his cup with precise care. Sweetheart, he said, and his voice was very gentle. I understand you're feeling protective of what you've built. That's natural, but you need to think practically. Without Voss Development's backing, Prairie Sky is just another small firm. You'll spend the next 5 years scraping by on residential remodels and hoping for a break that might never come. Is that really what you want? What I want is to maintain control of my own company. Control is an illusion in this industry, Victor said. What matters is sustainability, growth, the ability to take on projects that actually challenge you. He leaned back. I'm offering you that. A platform to do your best work without the constant stress of keeping a small business afloat. Why are you fighting this? Because it's not your decision to make. Elena kept her voice level. Prairie Sky is my firm. I built it. I get to decide how it grows and who it partners with. And I've decided that integration isn't the right path. Marissa's laugh was short. You've decided, just like that. Just like that. And you're willing to throw away this opportunity? The Riverside project? The investor relationships? The credibility? Marissa shook her head. Elena, you're being childish. I'm being clear about my boundaries. You're being stubborn. Victor's voice hardened slightly. Let me be clear, too. The investors' meeting tomorrow isn't a casual conversation. Meridian's board will be there, the project financing team, the city planning liaison. These are people who need confidence and stability. If you show up offering some half-measure partnership while refusing to commit to Voss Development structure, they're going to see uncertainty, risk, and this whole deal could fall apart. Then maybe it should fall apart, Elena said quietly. The words hung in the air. Marissa stared at her. Victor went very still. You don't mean that, he said. I mean exactly that. If this deal requires me to sign away my independence, then I'm not interested. Find another architect, use your internal design team, do whatever you need to do, but you're not getting Prairie Sky. Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment, Elena saw something raw in his expression, anger maybe, or fear. Then it smoothed over into disappointment. I see, he said. You've made up your mind. I have. Even knowing what it'll cost you, the professional relationships, the industry reputation, you understand that if you walk away from this, people will remember. Clients don't trust architects who can't manage major partnerships. You'll be radioactive. Then I'll deal with that. Elena, Marissa's voice was almost pleading now. Don't do this. Don't ruin everything because you're feeling stubborn. Dad is trying to help you. Elena looked at her sister, saw genuine concern there mixed with something else. Confusion, maybe. Marissa had always played by their father's rules, had thrived within his system. She genuinely didn't understand why Elena would choose differently. I know you believe that, Elena said gently, but I can't build my life on someone else's terms, not even Dad's. She stood. Victor remained seated, his expression unreadable. Where are you going? He asked. For a walk. I need air. Elena picked up her bag. I'll be at the investor dinner tonight. I'll present the Riverside project professionally, but I won't be signing any integration agreements. That's final. She walked away before he could respond, before her resolve could crack, before the weight of his disappointment could crush her certainty. Out in the lobby, her hands started shaking. She made it to a quiet hallway before she had to stop and lean against the wall, breathing hard. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. How'd it go? Elena typed back with trembling fingers. I didn't fold. Good. That's the hard part. Now just hold the line. He's going to make tonight hell. Probably. But you'll survive it. And tomorrow, you'll still own your company. Elena stared at the message, drawing strength from its simplicity. Ryan was right. Everything else was negotiable, but Prairie Sky's independence wasn't. She pushed off the wall and headed for the exit, suddenly needing to be outside, away from the resort's careful luxury. She walked down to the lake, found a bench, and sat watching the water. Her phone rang. Her accountant. Elena, I just got your email about the contract review. What's going on? Change of plans, Elena said. I'm not integrating with Voss development. I need you to help me structure Prairie Sky's finances for full independence. A pause. Does Victor know about this? He does now. Elena. Her accountant's voice was careful. I've worked with your father for 15 years. He's been a great client. This puts me in an awkward position. There it was. The first domino. I understand, Elena said. I'll find someone else. Thank you for your work so far. She hung up before he could respond, immediately called the Seattle law firm, left a voicemail explaining she needed representation urgently. Then she sat there, staring at her phone, understanding that this was just the beginning. Her father would pressure every vendor, every contact, every professional relationship she'd built. He'd make it expensive and exhausting to stay independent. But Ryan's words echoed, bullies rely on you being too scared or too tired to fight back. Elena wasn't too scared, and she'd learned how to function on no sleep. She spent the rest of the morning making calls, sending emails, quietly building the infrastructure she'd need to operate without Voss development support. It was methodical, strategic work that kept her mind occupied and her hands busy. By noon, she'd lined up a new accountant, scheduled consultations with 2 different law firms, and contacted 3 of her existing clients to confirm their contracts were independent of any Voss development involvement. They were. Prairie Sky's work stood on its own. That was something. She was heading back to her room when she ran into Ryan in the hallway. He was carrying his laptop bag, looked like he was coming from a meeting. Hey, he said quietly. Hey. They stood there for a moment, aware of people passing, of the need for discretion. Then Ryan nodded toward the far end of the hall. Walk with me? They walked in silence until they reached an empty conference room. Ryan checked to make sure it was unoccupied, then gestured Elena inside. I heard, he said once the door was closed. Heard what? That you turned down the integration. That breakfast didn't go well. Resort staff gossip. Ryan set down his bag. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Elena realized she was gripping her phone too tightly, forced herself to relax. I told him no. He tried every angle he could think of. I held my ground. And now I'm terrified. The admission came out before she could stop it. My accountant just dropped me. I'm rebuilding my entire professional support network in a day. And I still have to get through tonight's dinner without looking like I'm falling apart. You're not falling apart. I feel like I'm falling apart. Ryan studied her. You know what falling apart actually looks like? It looks like signing documents you know are wrong because you're too exhausted to fight anymore. It looks like rationalizing your way into a cage because the bars are made of gold. His expression was serious. What you're doing, standing up, setting boundaries, refusing to compromise your independence, that's not falling apart. That's holding together. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. You're good at this. At what? Saying the thing people need to hear. Ryan's smile was brief. Comes from having a kid who asks hard questions. You learn to answer honestly or they know you're lying. He pulled out a folder. Here, I made copies of the financial documents that show your father's liquidity problems, just in case you need them tonight. You think I'll need them? I think your father is desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. If he pushes too hard, if he tries to force your hand in front of the investors, you might need evidence to back up your position. Ryan handed her the folder. Don't lead with it, but have it ready. Elena took the documents, feeling their weight. This could destroy him. Yes. Part of me wants that. Is that terrible? It's human, Ryan said. He's been using you. Being angry about that is reasonable. But destroying him doesn't actually get you what you want. You want Prairie Sky to succeed. You want independence. You want respect. Ryan met her eyes. Focus on those goals. Use the leverage you need to use, but don't make this about revenge. Make it about building what you want. Elena nodded slowly. He was right. This wasn't about punishing her father. This was about protecting her work. Thank you, she said, for the documents, for the perspective, for all of it. You're welcome. Ryan checked his watch. I should get back. Still have actual audit work to finish before tomorrow's meeting. Right. Your actual job. My actual job. He picked up his bag. Elena, tonight, if it gets rough, remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to justify your decisions. You just have to hold your boundary. Hold my boundary, Elena repeated. That's it. Everything else is noise. He left, and Elena stood there holding the folder, feeling steadier than she had all morning. The investor dinner was scheduled for 7. Elena spent the afternoon finalizing her presentation, triple-checking her renderings, rehearsing her talking points. When she came downstairs at 6:50, the resort's private dining room was already filling with people. She recognized faces from the preliminary meetings, Meridian's board members, the project financing team, city officials. Her father was holding court near the windows, Marissa beside him, both of them looking confident and controlled. Elena walked in alone, wearing her armor jacket and her most professional smile. The evening was about to begin, and she was as ready as she'd ever be. Victor saw Elena the moment she entered, and his expression shifted, subtle, controlled. But Elena had learned to read those micro-changes over 28 years. Displeasure masked as pleasant surprise. He excused himself from the group he'd been charming and crossed the room toward her. Elena, you look lovely. He kissed her cheek, kept his voice low. I wasn't sure you'd come. I said I would present. I keep my commitments. Of course you do. But Victor's hand settled on her elbow, steering her toward the bar. Listen, about this morning, I think we both said things we didn't mean. Heat of the moment. Why don't we start fresh? Elena gently extracted her arm. I meant what I said, Dad. Prairie Sky stays independent. His jaw tightened fractionally. We'll discuss this later. Right now, I need you to focus on the presentation. These people need to see a unified vision. They will. I'm presenting the Riverside project exactly as we discussed. The design is strong. It stands on its own merit. Elena. But a tall man in an expensive suit was approaching, hand extended. You must be Elena Voss, Michael Chen, Meridian Holdings. Your father's been talking about your sustainable design work. I'm eager to see what you've put together. Elena shook his hand, shifted into professional mode. Mr. Chen, thank you. I think you'll find the Riverside approach addresses both environmental responsibility and market viability. Bold claim. I like bold. Chen smiled. Victor tells me you're integrating your firm with Voss Development. Smart move, combined operations, shared resources. That's how you scale quality. Elena felt her father's eyes on her, waiting to see how she'd respond. She smiled at Chen. Actually, we're maintaining a partnership structure. Prairie Sky provides specialized design services while Voss Development handles construction and development, best of both approaches. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. Partnership? I thought, let's get you a drink, Michael, Victor interrupted smoothly. Elena, why don't you set up your presentation? We'll start in 15 minutes. He guided Chen away before Elena could respond. She watched them go, saw her father lean in close, saying something that made Chen nod thoughtfully. Damage control. Reframing the narrative. Elena's hands wanted to shake. She forced them steady and went to check the presentation equipment. Ryan was there, ostensibly reviewing documents at a corner table, but he caught her eye briefly. A small nod. You're doing fine. Elena connected her laptop, pulled up the renderings. The Riverside project filled the screen. Mixed-use development, sustainable materials, public green space integrated with commercial units. It was good work, maybe the best she'd ever done. She just had to get through the next 2 hours without her father undermining everything. The room filled. 23 people, Elena counted. Investors, board members, city officials, and various advisors. Marissa took a seat near the front, gave Elena a tight smile that could have meant anything. Victor stood near the back, arms crossed, watching. At 7:15, the resort manager dimmed the lights. Victor stepped forward, commanding attention effortlessly. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're here tonight to discuss an exciting opportunity, the Riverside Mixed-Use Development. It represents everything Voss Development stands for. Innovation, sustainability, community investment. He gestured toward Elena. And it's being designed by someone who embodies those values. My daughter, Elena Voss. Polite applause. Elena stood, clicked to the first slide, and began. Riverside isn't just a development project. It's an answer to a question we should be asking more often in urban planning. How do we build spaces that serve both economic growth and environmental health? She walked them through the design philosophy, the passive solar orientation, the rainwater capture systems, the native landscaping that reduced irrigation needs by 70%. The room was engaged. Questions came. Good questions about cost, about construction timeline, about maintenance requirements. Elena answered them cleanly, backed up her claims with data, showed them how sustainable design wasn't just ethical but profitable. She was halfway through when Victor interrupted. "If I could add context here," he said, stepping forward. "What Elena's presenting is the creative vision, but execution requires infrastructure that Prairie Sky, as a boutique firm, simply doesn't have, which is why we're integrating operations. Voss Development will provide the construction management, the contractor relationships, the permitting expertise. One unified team, start to finish." Elena's stomach dropped. He was doing it, rewriting the structure in front of everyone. "Actually," she said carefully, "that's not quite accurate." Victor's smile didn't waver. "Elena, Prairie Sky is providing design and project oversight as an independent partner. Voss Development handles construction management, separate entities, collaborative relationship." The room went quiet. Michael Chen leaned forward. "I'm confused. Victor, you told me this was a fully integrated operation." "It is," Victor said firmly. "Elena's just being modest about her role. Of course there's integration. That's how complex projects succeed." "With respect, Dad, there's a difference between collaboration and integration." Elena kept her voice steady. "Prairie Sky maintains design authority. We're not a subsidiary. We're a partner." Marissa stood up. "Elena, maybe this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Elena cut in. "These investors deserve clarity about the project structure. Prairie Sky Design is an independent firm. We'll work with Voss Development, but we're not merging operations." Victor's expression went cold. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Elena, can we speak privately?" "No, this is a business discussion. It should happen here." Elena clicked to a new slide, the organizational chart she'd built that morning, showing Prairie Sky and Voss Development as separate entities with defined collaborative boundaries. "This is the actual structure. Clear roles, clear accountability. It's stronger this way." "Stronger?" Victor's voice rose slightly. "Or riskier? These investors need to know they're backing a stable operation, not some fragmented arrangement that could fall apart if my daughter decides she doesn't want to play team anymore." The words hit like a slap. Elena felt heat rise in her face, but kept her voice level. "I've never missed a deadline, never delivered substandard work. Prairie Sky's track record speaks for itself." "Your track record is small residential projects," Victor shot back. "This is $80 million, 3 years of construction. You've never managed anything at this scale. That's why integration makes sense. It provides the stability and oversight you need." "I don't need oversight. I need partnership. You need someone to make sure you don't sink this project with idealism that doesn't understand market realities." The room was dead silent now. Elena could feel everyone watching, assessing, wondering if this family drama was about to torpedo the entire deal. She took a breath, held her ground. "Mr. Chen," she said, turning to address Meridian's CEO directly. "I understand this is uncomfortable. Family disagreements usually are. But let me be clear about what I'm offering. Prairie Sky will design Riverside. We'll manage the architectural and engineering coordination. We'll ensure the sustainability metrics are met. We'll deliver exactly what I've presented tonight. Voss Development will handle construction, permitting, and contractor management. Both firms do what they do best." "And if there are conflicts," Chen asked, "if the design and construction teams can't agree, then we resolve them like professionals. Discussion, compromise, and ultimately, clear contract language about decision authority." Elena glanced at Ryan's table. He was watching her steadily. "That's how partnerships work." "Partnerships work when both parties are equals," Victor said, and his voice had gone quiet, dangerous. "When one party is my 28-year-old daughter with 4 years of experience, and the other is a firm with 30 years of successful development, we're not equals. We're guardian and ward." Elena felt something crack inside her chest. "Guardian and ward? You know what I mean." "I know exactly what you mean. You mean I'm a child who needs protection from my own ambitions. You mean my work isn't really mine because I couldn't possibly have built it without your connections, your money, your name, opening doors. Her voice was shaking now, but she didn't care. You mean I should be grateful that you're willing to let me keep the title architect while you take everything that matters? Elena, that's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. Elena turned back to the room. I apologize for the disruption, but I won't apologize for standing behind my work. Prairie Sky Design is independent. If Voss Development wants to partner with us on Riverside, we're open to that conversation. But we're not for sale. Not to my father. Not to anyone. She closed her laptop, unplugged it, and walked toward the door. Elena, wait! Marissa called. You can't just leave. But Elena was already gone, pushing through the dining room doors into the hallway, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Behind her, she heard Victor's voice, smooth and apologetic. I apologize for that scene. My daughter is passionate about her work. Sometimes that passion clouds her judgment. Let's take a short break, regroup, and I'll walk everyone through the construction timeline. Elena didn't hear the rest. She was moving fast, needing air, needing space, needing to be anywhere but in that room with her father's disappointed face and Marissa's embarrassed concern, and 23 people watching her implode. She made it outside to the terrace before the shaking started. She gripped the railing, stared at the dark lake, and tried to remember how to breathe. Footsteps behind her. She tensed, expecting her father or Marissa, but it was Ryan's voice that spoke. That was brave as hell. Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. That was a disaster. No, a disaster would have been signing something you didn't want to sign just to avoid conflict. Ryan came to stand beside her, not touching, just present. You drew a line. You held it. That's not a disaster. I just blew up the biggest opportunity of my career in front of 24 investors. Maybe. Or maybe you just showed them you're not someone who can be pushed around, which, depending on the investor, might actually be appealing. Elena turned to look at him. Are you always this optimistic? No. Usually I'm pretty cynical, but you earned some optimism tonight. Ryan's expression was serious. You want to know what I saw in there? I saw someone who knows her worth. That's rare. My father thinks I'm being childish. Your father thinks anything that threatens his control is childish. Don't make his anxiety your problem. The word settled something in Elena's chest. She took a long breath, let it out slowly. What happens now? Honestly, I don't know. Your father will try to salvage the meeting, probably convince the investors that you're just being temperamental and he can manage you. Some of them will believe him, some won't. Ryan was quiet for a moment. But here's what I do know. You just made it very public that you're not integrating with Voss Development, which means if your father wants Riverside to happen, he has to accept your terms. You backed him into a corner. Or he lets the whole thing die and blames me for it. That's possible too. Ryan didn't sugarcoat it. But if he does that, every investor in that room is going to remember that Victor Voss couldn't work with his own daughter. That's not a good look for a man trying to sell himself as a team player for a major acquisition. Elena thought about that. So I heard him either way. You set a boundary. How he responds to it is his choice. They stood there in silence for a while, the mountain air cold and sharp. Elena's hands eventually stopped shaking. Her breathing evened out. The panic receded, leaving behind exhaustion and a strange, fierce clarity. I need to leave, she said finally. I can't stay here tonight. I can't sit through breakfast tomorrow pretending everything's fine. Where will you go? Home. Back to my office. Start making calls to clients, explaining what happened before my father can spin it his way. Elena pulled out her phone. I'll drive back tonight. It's only 3 hours. Elena, you're exhausted and probably in shock. Don't drive in this condition. I'm fine. You're not fine. You just had a public confrontation with your father at a high-stakes business meeting. Your adrenaline is crashing and you're making decisions from pure survival instinct. Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. Stay tonight. Get some sleep. Leave first thing in the morning with a clear head. Elena wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She was running on fumes and fear. Not a good combination for mountain roads at night. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay. But I'm not going back to that dining room. You don't have to. order room service, take a bath, decompress. Ryan pulled out his phone. And if you want company that isn't family or investors, I'll be working on audit reports all night. Very boring, possibly helpful as a distraction. Elena managed to smile. Rain check? I think I need to be alone for a bit. Fair enough. Text me if you change your mind. He left, and Elena stood on the terrace a while longer, watching the stars come out over the mountains. Eventually, she went inside, took the elevator to her floor, and locked herself in her room. Her phone was lighting up with messages. Marissa, what were you thinking? Her father, we need to talk, now. Unknown numbers. Probably investors or their assistants fishing for context. Elena turned off her phone. She ordered soup she barely ate, ran a bath she sat in until the water went cold, and finally crawled into bed around midnight. Sleep didn't come. She just lay there replaying the scene, wondering if she'd been right or reckless, or some combination of both. At 2 in the morning, she gave up and turned her phone back on. Scrolled through the messages she'd ignored. Most were what she expected, concerned, critical, or professionally curious, but there was one that made her pause. Michael Chen, Meridian CEO, sent at 11:45. Ms. Voss. Unusual evening. I'd like to discuss the project structure in more detail. Are you available for breakfast tomorrow? Just you and me. No Victor. Elena stared at the message, reading it 3 times. Then she typed back, yes. What time? The response came almost immediately. 7. Mountain Grounds coffee shop in town. I assume you know it. Elena smiled despite everything. I do. See you there. She set the phone down, feeling something shift. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. Maybe she hadn't destroyed everything after all. Morning came gray and cold. Elena dressed carefully, professional but not armor, approachable but not weak. She left the resort at 6:30, drove into town through mist that clung to the mountains like uncertainty. Mountain Grounds was quiet when she arrived. Michael Chen was already there, sitting at a corner table with coffee and a tablet, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that made him look more like a local than a CEO. Ms. Voss. He stood, shook her hand. Thanks for meeting me. Thank you for the invitation. Elena sat down, accepted the coffee he'd already ordered for her. I imagine last night raised a lot of questions. It did. Starting with, what the hell was that? But Chen was smiling slightly. I've seen family businesses before. The dynamics can get complicated, but that was something else. Elena decided on honesty. My father wants to absorb my firm. I'm refusing. The Riverside project became the battleground because it's leverage for both of us. He needs your design credibility. And I need the scale and resources of a major project. So we're stuck. Elena wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. Except I'm not willing to trade my independence for access, even if it means walking away from the best opportunity I've had. Chen studied her. You really mean that? Yes. Interesting. He took a sip of coffee. Can I be direct? Please. I've been in negotiations with Victor for 3 months. He's smart, connected, good at what he does. But there's something about his operation that doesn't quite add up. The financials look great on paper, but when I dig deeper, I get evasive answers. Delays on documentation. Complicated subsidiary structures that don't have clear purposes. Chen leaned forward. Last night, watching you two, I started wondering if the evasiveness is because there's something he's hiding, or if it's just his management style. Elena's pulse quickened. This was it. The opening. She could stay silent, let Chen figure it out on his own. Or she could tell him the truth. She thought about Ryan's words. Don't make this about revenge. Make it about building what you want. Mr. Chen, I'm not an auditor. I can't speak to Voss Development's financial health with authority, but I can tell you why I'm refusing to integrate. Elena met his eyes. My father has been building his empire on borrowed time and borrowed money. He needs the Meridian acquisition to close because you have cash reserves that will stabilize his operation. And he needs my firm's reputation because without it, Voss Development looks like exactly what it is, over-leveraged and struggling. Chen's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his gaze. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation, and I'm risking my relationship with my father by telling you, but you deserve to know what you're buying into. Elena pulled out her phone, opened the folder Ryan had prepared. I have documentation. Financial analysis showing intercompany loans, liquidity gaps, projects that look successful but are actually heavily leveraged. It's not illegal, but it's not the stable operation you think you're acquiring. Chen took her phone, scrolled through the documents slowly. His jaw tightened. When he looked up, his expression was carefully neutral. Where did you get this? From someone who knows how to read balance sheets, someone with no stake in this deal except accuracy. The auditor, Ryan Hale. Elena hesitated, then nodded. He provided the analysis, but the documents are real. You can verify everything through your own due diligence team. Chen set down her phone. You know what you just did? You possibly killed this acquisition, which kills Riverside, which means Prairie Sky loses its biggest project. I know. So why tell me? Because I don't want to build my career on a foundation that's rotting from the inside, and because you strike me as someone who'd rather know the truth and make an informed decision than get blindsided 6 months after the acquisition closes. Elena's voice was steady. If Meridian walks away, I'll survive. I'll rebuild. But if you acquire Voss Development without understanding its actual financial position, you could lose everything. Chen was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. David, Michael Chen, I need you to run a deeper financial analysis on Voss Development. Full forensic review. Subsidiary structures. Intercompany transactions, cash flow patterns. He listened for a moment. I don't care if it delays the timeline. I need to know what I'm actually buying. Get it done. He hung up, looked at Elena. Thank you for your honesty. You're welcome. Now let's talk about Riverside. Chen pulled up something on his tablet. I still like the project. The design is strong, the market fundamentals are solid, and frankly, the sustainability angle is exactly what Meridian wants to be associated with. But I'm not comfortable moving forward with Voss Development as the lead developer. Not until I understand their actual financial position. Elena's stomach tightened. So the project is dead? Not necessarily. Chen turned the tablet toward her. What if Meridian partnered directly with Prairie Sky? We provide the financing and construction management. You provide the design and project oversight. We cut Voss Development out entirely. Elena stared at him. You'd do that? I'd consider it. Assuming Prairie Sky can actually handle a project this scale. Can you? The question hung there, enormous and terrifying and full of possibility. Elena thought about her team, small but talented. She thought about the gaps in her experience, the risks of taking on something this ambitious without an established developer's infrastructure. She thought about all the reasons this could fail. Then she thought about building something that was entirely hers. No compromises, no control battles. Just clean work on her own terms. Yes, she said, we can handle it. Chen smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Here's what I'm thinking. You spend the next 2 weeks putting together a detailed proposal. Project timeline, cost breakdowns, contractor recommendations, risk mitigation strategies. Show me you've thought through every detail. If it's solid, we move forward. If it's not, we revisit. And my father? I'll handle Victor. He's not going to be happy, but that's business. Chen stood, extended his hand. One more thing, Ms. Voss. Last night, when you walked out of that dining room, half the investors thought you were being unprofessional, but I thought you were being honest. And in my experience, people who are willing to burn their own opportunities rather than compromise their principles are the ones worth betting on. Elena shook his hand, feeling like the world had just tilted on its axis. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You've got 2 weeks to prove you can deliver. That's not a lot of time. It's enough. After Chen left, Elena sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at her phone, trying to process what had just happened. She'd walked into the meeting expecting damage control at best. She was walking out with a potential partnership that could change everything. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. How'd it go? Elena typed back. He wants Prairie Sky to partner with Meridian directly. Cut my father out completely. I have 2 weeks to put together a full proposal. Ryan's response came fast. Holy shit, that's huge. Congratulations. I haven't done anything yet. You stood your ground. You told the truth. You took the risk. That's doing something. Elena smiled, feeling steadier. I need help. Proposal writing isn't my strength. Financial projections definitely aren't. I'm in. When do we start? Today. Now. As soon as I figure out how to tell my father his biggest acquisition just imploded. Want me to be there when you do? Elena considered it, then typed, No. This one I need to do alone. But thank you for offering. Good luck. Text me after. Elena paid for the coffee and drove back to the resort. It was just past 8:30. The investor breakfast would be starting soon. Her father would be there, probably trying to smooth over last night's disaster. She went straight to his suite and knocked. Victor opened the door in a dress shirt and slacks, looking like he hadn't slept. His expression when he saw her was complicated. Relief and anger and exhaustion, all mixed together. Elena, come in. She stepped inside. The suite was immaculate except for the papers scattered across the desk, the coffee cups, the evidence of a long night. I was about to call you, Victor said. We need to discuss. I just had breakfast with Michael Chen. Victor went very still. What? He asked to meet, just the two of us. We talked about Riverside, about Voss Development, about the acquisition. Elena kept her voice steady. He's running a full forensic financial review of your company, and he's considering partnering with Prairie Sky directly on Riverside, without Voss Development's involvement. The color drained from her father's face. You told him about the liquidity problems, about the subsidiary loans. I told him the truth, because he deserved to know what he was acquiring. You sabotaged my deal. Victor's voice was low, dangerous. You destroyed everything I've been building for 3 months, because you were mad about a contract negotiation. No, I gave an investor information he needed to make an informed decision. What you've been building is a house of cards, Dad, and I wasn't going to let my firm become part of the collapse. Victor laughed, sharp and bitter. Your firm? You really think you built that? I gave you the seed money. I introduced you to your first clients. I opened doors that would have stayed closed for another unknown architect straight out of school. Everything you have because I made it possible. You helped me get started, Elena acknowledged. I'm grateful for that. But I built Prairie Sky. I designed every project. I managed every client relationship. I worked 70-hour weeks to deliver quality work that earned its own reputation. You don't get to take credit for that. I don't get to... Victor's hands clenched. You ungrateful, naive child. You have no idea what you've just done. Chen is going to walk away from this acquisition. Voss Development's financial problems are going to become public. I'll have to restructure, probably sell off subsidiaries, maybe even declare bankruptcy. And it's your fault. No, Elena said quietly. It's yours. You built an operation you couldn't sustain. You leveraged everything on deals that required deception to work. You tried to trap your own daughter into signing over her company to cover your mistakes. Those were your choices. I'm just refusing to go down with you. Victor stared at her like he'd never seen her before. You're cutting me out. Your own father. I'm protecting my work. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like betrayal. Elena felt the words hit, felt the old guilt try to rise up and choke her. Then she remembered Ryan's voice. Don't make his anxiety your problem. I'm sorry you see it that way, she said, but my answer hasn't changed. Prairie Sky stays independent. If you can't accept that, we're done talking. Elena, but she was already at the door. I'll be checking out this morning. I'm going back to my office to build a proposal for Meridian. If you want to repair our relationship, you know where to find me, but I'm not negotiating about my company anymore. That conversation is over. She walked out before he could respond, before the old patterns could pull her back into doubt and guilt and the desperate need for his approval. In the hallway, her hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. Not panic, just adrenaline. The aftermath of a fight she'd finally won. Her phone buzzed. Marissa. Did you really just blow up Dad's acquisition? What is wrong with you? Elena typed back. Nothing. For the first time in a long time, nothing is wrong with me. She went to her room, packed quickly, and checked out. On her way through the lobby, she spotted Ryan near the entrance, clearly waiting. Heard you might need a coffee companion for the drive home, he said. Elena smiled, genuine and tired and relieved. That would be perfect. They drove in Ryan's car. He'd fly back later for the audit wrap-up meetings. And for the first hour, Elena just sat quietly, watching Montana slide past the window. Finally, she spoke. I just destroyed my father's business deal and probably ended my relationship with him. Why don't I feel worse? Because you're not responsible for his choices, Ryan said. And because you've been carrying the weight of his expectations for so long that putting it down probably feels like relief. It does, Elena admitted. It feels like I can breathe for the first time in years. Good. You should feel that way. You earned it. They stopped for actual coffee in a small town halfway home, sat at a diner counter, and ate mediocre eggs while Elena started sketching out the Meridian proposal on napkins. I'm going to need a real contractor, she said. Someone who can give me accurate cost estimates and timeline projections. Do you know anyone? I might. Let me make some calls. Ryan pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. There's a guy I worked with on a housing development audit 2 years ago. Jim Castellano. Straight shooter, very detail-oriented. I'll see if he's available for a consultation. Thank you. Elena drew more lines on the napkin. I'm also going to need financing expertise, budget modeling, risk analysis, things that are absolutely not my area. Those are exactly my area, Ryan pointed out. I told you I'd help. This isn't a favor anymore. This is a major project. I should pay you. You should. Standard consulting rate, billed weekly. Ryan's expression was serious. But not because I need the money. Because this needs to be a clean professional relationship with clear boundaries. You're building something real. It needs proper structure. Elena looked at him, this man who'd stepped into her crisis a few days ago and somehow become essential. Why are you doing this? Really? Ryan was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee. You remember I told you I have a daughter, Lily. She's 7. Smart as hell, asked impossible questions. He smiled slightly. Last month she asked me why women have to be twice as good to get half as much. She'd heard it somewhere, wanted to know if it was true. What did you tell her? I told her it shouldn't be true, but sometimes it is, and that she gets to decide whether to accept that or fight it. Ryan looked up. You're fighting it. I want her to see that's possible. So yeah, maybe I'm doing this for you, but I'm also doing it for Lily. And for every other kid who deserves to grow up seeing people refuse unfair systems. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not attraction exactly, though there was some of that. More like recognition. Here was someone who understood what the fight cost and chose to stand in it anyway. Your daughter is lucky to have you, she said quietly. I'm lucky to have her. She makes me better. Ryan paid the check. Come on, let's get you home so you can start building this proposal. 2 weeks isn't a lot of time. They drove the rest of the way talking logistics, timelines, resource needs. By the time they reached Elena's office, a converted warehouse loft in a transitioning neighborhood, she had the skeleton of a plan. Ryan walked her up, helped carry her bags, looked around at the drafting tables and model materials and wall-sized printouts of previous projects. This is great, he said. Real workspace. You can feel the work happening here. It's home, Elena said simply. More than anywhere else. Her assistant Marcus looked up from his computer, visibly relieved. Elena, thank God. I've been getting calls all morning from... He stopped, noticing Ryan. Hi. Marcus, this is Ryan Hale. He's consulting on the Riverside proposal. Ryan, Marcus Chen, yes, Michael's nephew, no nepotism. He earned the job, our junior associate and the person who actually keeps this place running. Marcus laughed. She's not wrong. Nice to meet you. He turned back to Elena. So, Victor Voss called 3 times. Marissa called twice. And someone from Meridian Holdings called, requesting updated portfolio samples. I didn't know what to tell them. Tell Meridian we'll have samples ready by tomorrow afternoon. Tell my family I'll call them when I'm ready, which is not today. Elena dropped her bags. How's the Bozeman residential project? On schedule. The contractor confirmed the sustainable framing materials will arrive next week. We're good. Perfect. Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Everything non-essential gets postponed. We're building a proposal for Meridian. Marcus's eyes widened. Wait, the Riverside project? I thought that was with your father. It was. It's not anymore. I'll explain everything, but first I need coffee that doesn't taste like regret and a whiteboard. Elena looked at Ryan. You staying or heading back? Staying. I need to make those contractor calls anyway. Plus, someone has to keep you from spiraling into perfectionist panic. I don't spiral. You absolutely spiral, Marcus said. Remember the community center proposal? You rewrote the introduction 17 times. That was different. It wasn't. Elena laughed despite everything, feeling the tension of the past 3 days finally start to loosen. This was her space, her team, her work. No one here needed managing or maneuvering, just honest effort toward a shared goal. Okay, she said, let's get started. For the next 10 hours, they worked. Elena drafted project phases while Ryan built financial models. Marcus pulled together portfolio samples and reached out to past clients for reference letters. They ordered pizza at 7, worked through dinner, kept going until past midnight. When Marcus finally left, exhausted but energized, Elena and Ryan sat in the quiet office, surrounded by papers and screens and the skeleton of something ambitious. This could actually work, Elena said, staring at the timeline they'd built. It will work, Ryan corrected, assuming you can deliver what you're promising. Can you? Yes. Elena said it without hesitation. I can. Then stop doubting. Start executing. Elena looked at him, this man who'd somehow become her ally in the space of 3 days. Thank you for everything, for seeing what was happening, for giving me the information I needed, for standing beside me when I had to fight back. You're welcome, but you did the hard part. I just helped you see clearly. That's not nothing. Ryan smiled, tired but genuine. No, I guess it's not. He left around 1 in the morning, and Elena finally went home to her small apartment, fell into bed fully clothed, and slept dreamlessly for the first time in days. When she woke 6 hours later, there were messages waiting. Marissa, still angry. Her father, formal and cold, informing her that Voss Development would be severing all business relationships with Prairie Sky, effective immediately. And Michael Chen, financial review ongoing, preliminary findings are concerning. I'm more interested than ever in your proposal. Don't let me down. Elena stared at that last message, feeling the weight and the promise of it. Then she got dressed, made coffee, and went back to work. She had 2 weeks to build something that would prove she belonged in rooms where decisions got made. 2 weeks to transform from her father's daughter into her own architect. It was the best deadline she'd ever had. The 2 weeks that followed were the hardest Elena had ever worked. 16-hour days became normal. Sleep became optional. Her small apartment accumulated empty coffee cups and takeout containers she kept promising to clean up later. On day 3, Jim Castellano came to the office. He was in his 50s, built like someone who'd spent decades on construction sites, with a handshake that could crack walnuts and a directness Elena appreciated immediately. Ryan says you need cost estimates for an $80 million mixed-use development, Jim said, settling into a chair that creaked under his weight. That true? Yes. Riverside project. Sustainable design, 3-year construction timeline, multiple contractors across different phases. Elena pulled up the renderings. I need to know if what I'm proposing is actually buildable within a realistic budget. Jim studied the designs for a long time, zooming in on details, making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up. It's buildable. Question is whether you can manage it. You ever coordinated multiple prime contractors before? No. You ever dealt with material shortages mid-construction, weather delays, labor disputes, permitting nightmares? No. Jim nodded slowly. At least you're honest. Most architects in your position would bullshit me. He tapped the screen. Here's my assessment. Your design is solid. The sustainability integration is smart. It'll actually save money long term. But you're going to need a construction manager who knows what they're doing. Someone who can handle the grunt work while you focus on design integrity. Are you interested? Elena asked. Maybe. Depends on whether you can actually get this funded. I don't work on projects that die in development. Jim pulled out his phone. Give me a week. I'll put together detailed cost breakdowns for each phase, identify the high-risk items, and give you contingency recommendations. If Meridian bites, we'll talk about my involvement. Fair enough? After Jim left, Ryan looked up from the financial models he'd been building. He likes you. How can you tell? He didn't try to intimidate you. That's Jim's version of approval. Ryan stretched, his back cracking audibly. How's the project timeline looking? Aggressive, but doable. Assuming everything goes perfectly, which it won't. Elena rubbed her eyes. I'm building in 3-month buffer periods between major phases. Is that enough? Depends on the phase. Show me. They spent the next 4 hours stress testing the timeline, identifying weak points, building contingency plans. Marcus ordered Thai food around 8, and they ate at their desks while reviewing contractor recommendations. Elena's phone buzzed. Marissa again. She'd been calling twice a day, leaving increasingly frustrated voicemails that Elena kept deleting without listening to. But this time, it was a text. Dad's in trouble. Real trouble. The Meridian deal is dead, and his lenders are calling loans. Please call me. Elena stared at the message, feeling something complicated twist in her chest. Part of her wanted to feel vindicated. He'd brought this on himself through years of risky leveraging and financial manipulation. Part of her just felt sad. He was still her father. Ryan noticed her expression. Bad news? My father's company is collapsing. Marissa wants me to call. Are you going to? Elena thought about it. Not tonight, maybe tomorrow, after I finish the Meridian proposal. She set down her phone. Does that make me a terrible daughter? It makes you someone with boundaries. There's a difference. Marissa won't see it that way. Marissa enabled your father's behavior for years. Her judgment isn't the metric you should use. Ryan turned back to his spreadsheet. But for what it's worth, you can care about someone and still refuse to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. The words settled something in Elena's mind. She picked up her pencil and went back to work. By day 7, they had a complete draft. 143 pages covering every aspect of the project: design philosophy, construction timeline, cost breakdowns, risk mitigation strategies, sustainability metrics, market analysis, and financial projections showing return on investment over a 10-year period. Elena printed it out at 2 in the morning, sat alone in the office reading it cover to cover. It was good. Maybe the best work she'd ever produced. But was it good enough? Her phone buzzed. Ryan, apparently also awake. Stop second-guessing. It's solid. Get some sleep. Elena smiled and typed back, How did you know I was second-guessing? Because I know you. Sleep. Tomorrow we review with fresh eyes and finalize. She went home, managed 4 hours of sleep, and came back at 7 to find Marcus already there with coffee and Jim Castellano's detailed cost analysis. Jim sent this at 5 this morning, Marcus said. He says your numbers are conservative, which is good. He also says you're insane for attempting this with a 3-person firm, but he respects the ambition. Elena laughed, exhausted and punchy. I'll take it. Ryan arrived at 8 with revisions to the financial models and a folder of reference letters he'd collected from Elena's past clients. They spent the day incorporating Jim's feedback, polishing language, and triple-checking every number. By 6 that evening, they had a final version. Elena sent it to Michael Chen with a cover email that took her 20 minutes to write because she kept overthinking the tone. Chen's response came 30 minutes later. Received. I'll review over the weekend and we'll meet Monday morning. My office, 9 a.m. Bring your team. Elena read the message 3 times, then looked at Ryan and Marcus. Monday morning. He wants to meet. That's good, Ryan said. That means he's taking it seriously. Or it means he wants to reject us in person and explain why. Stop catastrophizing. You did the work. Now you wait. The weekend was agony. Elena tried to relax, failed completely, and ended up at the office both days reworking sections of the proposal she'd already finalized. Ryan showed up Saturday afternoon with his daughter Lily, a small whirlwind of 7-year-old energy and questions. This is where you work? Lily asked, looking around at the drafting tables with wide eyes. It's messy. Creative spaces often are, Elena said, smiling. You must be Lily. Your dad talks about you. He talks about you too. He says you're fighting for your company. Lily climbed onto a stool, swinging her legs. Are you winning? Elena glanced at Ryan, who looked slightly mortified. I don't know yet. Ask me Monday. Dad says even if you don't win, you'll be okay because you're brave. Are you brave? I'm trying to be. Lily nodded seriously. That's the same thing. Trying to be brave is being brave. That's what Dad tells me when I'm scared of things. Something about the kid's certainty made Elena's throat tight. Your dad is pretty smart. I know. Lily jumped down from the stool. Can I draw on that big paper? Elena found her scrap drafting paper and markers, and Lily settled in to create something involving dragons and castles while the adults worked. Having the kid there made the office feel different, lighter, less pressured. Ryan was more relaxed too, occasionally getting pulled into questions about dragon anatomy or castle structural integrity. Around 4, Lily tugged on Elena's sleeve. I drew you something. The drawing showed 2 figures, one small, one tall, standing in front of a building. That's you and my dad, Lily explained. You're building something together, see? It's not done yet, but it's going to be really big. Elena looked at the drawing, at this child's interpretation of what was happening, and felt something crack open in her chest. It's beautiful. Can I keep it? Okay, but you have to put it somewhere you can see it, so you remember it's going to be big. Elena taped it to the wall next to her desk. How's that? Lily approved, then announced she was hungry. Ryan took her for pizza, and Elena stayed at the office, staring at the drawing and thinking about perspective. To Lily, this was simple. You worked hard, you built something, it got big. No complications about family dysfunction or corporate politics or fear of failure. Maybe it could be that simple. Maybe Elena was making it harder than it needed to be. Monday morning arrived cold and bright. Elena, dressed in her best suit, gathered the printed proposal into a leather portfolio and met Ryan and Marcus at the Meridian Holdings office at 8:45. The building was downtown, all steel and glass, with a lobby that screamed corporate success. Michael Chen's assistant met them at reception and led them to a conference room on the 23rd floor. Chen was already there with 3 other people Elena didn't recognize. He stood, shook hands all around, made introductions. His VP of Development, his head of Project Finance, and his general counsel. This was the decision-making team. Thanks for coming, Chen said. I've reviewed your proposal. It's impressive, thorough, but I have questions. They spent the next 2 hours going through it line by line. The VP of Development grilled Elena on construction sequencing and contractor coordination. The head of Project Finance tested Ryan's cost projections and risk models. The general counsel asked pointed questions about liability, insurance, and dispute resolution mechanisms. Elena answered everything as clearly as she could, but she could feel the scrutiny. These weren't friendly questions. These were people trying to find holes, weaknesses, reasons to say no. Finally, Chen leaned back in his chair. Let me be direct. You've put together a solid proposal. The design is excellent. The financials are conservative, which I appreciate. The risk analysis is realistic, but here's my concern. He looked at Elena. You're a 3-person firm. You've never managed a project at this scale. If something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong on projects this size, do you have the infrastructure to handle it? Elena met his eyes. No, I don't have the infrastructure of a major development firm, but that's not what you need for Riverside. What you need is someone who understands the vision deeply enough to protect it through 3 years of construction challenges. Someone who won't compromise the sustainability metrics when costs get tight. Someone who's personally invested in getting it right. She paused. I can't give you corporate infrastructure, but I can give you complete commitment, and I'll build the team I need around me to deliver. Including Jim Castellano? The VP of Development asked. If he's willing. I've asked him to consult on the proposal. He's indicated interest in the construction management role if the project moves forward. Jim's good, the VP acknowledged. Expensive, but good. The budget accounts for a top-tier construction manager, Ryan interjected. We've built those costs into the projections. Chen was quiet for a moment, studying Elena. Then he stood. Give us the room. We need to discuss internally. Elena, Ryan, and Marcus filed out into the hallway. The door closed behind them. They stood there in silence, waiting. How bad was it? Marcus whispered. I don't know, Elena admitted. They're either being thorough or finding ways to say no gently. Ryan checked his watch. It's been 4 minutes. If they're saying no, it won't take long. If they're actually discussing, we'll be here a while. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Elena paced the hallway, unable to sit still. Ryan watched her with patient concern. Marcus checked his phone obsessively. Finally, after nearly an hour, the door opened. Chen gestured them back in. The team was standing now, papers gathered. Chen's expression was neutral, professionally pleasant. Elena's stomach dropped. This was rejection. She could feel it. Ms. Voss, Chen began, and Elena braced herself. We have concerns about your firm's capacity. We have questions about risk management. We're not comfortable with some of the timeline assumptions. He paused. But we're also not comfortable passing on the strongest sustainable development proposal we've seen in 5 years. Elena's brain stuttered. What? We want to move forward, but with conditions. Chen sat back down, gestured for them to do the same. First, Jim Castellano needs to be locked in as construction manager. No substitutes. If he backs out, we revisit. Second, you'll have monthly review meetings with our development team. Any significant deviations from timeline or budget require our approval. Third, we're building in a 9-month oversight period. If at any point we determine Prairie Sky can't deliver, we have the right to bring in additional management support. You're saying yes, Elena said slowly, trying to make sure she understood correctly. We're saying yes with significant oversight. This isn't a blank check. You'll be working under close scrutiny. Chen's expression softened slightly. But yes, Meridian Holdings wants to partner with Prairie Sky Design on the Riverside project, assuming you can accept those terms. Elena looked at Ryan. He gave a small nod, then at Marcus, who looked like he might pass out from excitement. We can accept those terms, Elena said, and her voice came out steadier than she felt. Good. Chen stood again, extended his hand. We'll have our legal team draw up the partnership agreement. Expect it by end of week. Welcome aboard, Ms. Voss. They shook hands, and Elena tried to process what had just happened. She'd done it. Against every expectation, against her father's predictions, against her own doubts. Prairie Sky had just landed the biggest project in its history. Outside the building, Marcus let out a whoop that echoed off the downtown buildings. We did it. We actually did it. You did it, Ryan corrected, looking at Elena. You built the proposal. You sold the vision. This is yours. Elena stood on the sidewalk, feeling the morning sun on her face, trying to understand that the last 2 weeks of frantic work had actually paid off. Then she started laughing, half relief, half disbelief, half something that might have been joy. We need to call Jim, she said, make sure he's actually willing to sign on, and I need to hire at least 2 more architects. And we need office space that doesn't look like a creative disaster zone when clients visit. And you need to breathe, Ryan interrupted gently. You just cleared the first hurdle. Take 30 seconds to acknowledge that before you sprint toward the next one. Elena stopped, took a breath, let herself feel it. Victory. Real, earned victory. Okay, she said. 30 seconds is up. Let's get to work. They went to breakfast at a diner near the office, ordered everything on the menu because they were too wired to make decisions, and started planning. Marcus pulled up his laptop, started drafting a hiring announcement. Ryan outlined the steps for formalizing the Meridian Partnership Agreement. Elena sketched organizational structures on napkins, trying to figure out how to scale Prairie Sky without losing its identity. Her phone buzzed. Marissa, can we please talk? It's important. Elena stared at the message, then typed back. I'm in the middle of something. Can it wait until tomorrow? Dad's in the hospital. Everything stopped. Elena's hands went cold. I have to go. Ryan looked up. What happened? My father. He's in the hospital. Elena was already standing, gathering her things. I need to go. I'll drive you, Ryan said immediately. You don't have to. I'm driving you. You're in shock and you shouldn't be behind a wheel. Ryan threw cash on the table, nodded at Marcus. We'll call you later. They drove in tense silence. Elena called Marissa back, got voicemail, tried again. Finally, her sister picked up. Where are you? Marissa's voice was strained. 20 minutes away. What happened? Stress-induced cardiac episode. He collapsed at the office this morning. They think it's not a full heart attack, but they're running tests. Marissa's voice cracked. Elena, he's been working himself to death trying to salvage the company. The Meridian deal falling through triggered a cascade. Lenders are calling loans, partners are bailing, everything's falling apart. This guilt hit Elena like a fist. Is he okay? I don't know, the doctors are being vague. Marissa paused. He's been asking for you. The hospital was across town. Ryan navigated through traffic with efficient calm while Elena sat rigid in the passenger seat, her mind racing. She'd wanted independence, not this. She'd wanted to protect her work, not destroy her father's health. This isn't your fault, Ryan said quietly, reading her thoughts. You don't know that. But I know your father made his own choices. I know his financial problems existed long before you walked away from the integration deal. I know he was leveraging his company recklessly for years. Ryan's voice was firm. You're not responsible for the consequences of his decisions. He's in the hospital. Yes, and that's terrible. But it's not because you set boundaries. It's because he built an unstable system and refused to acknowledge it until everything collapsed. Elena wanted to believe him, but the guilt was choking her anyway. They reached the hospital, parked, hurried inside. Marissa was in the cardiac wing waiting room, still in her work clothes, mascara smudged from crying. She stood when she saw Elena. He's stable. They're moving him to a regular room soon. Marissa's voice was tight. Elena, what did you do? He said you gave confidential financial information to Michael Chen. Said you sabotaged the acquisition deliberately. I told Chen the truth about Voss Development's financial position. He deserved to know what he was buying. You destroyed Dad's last chance to save the company. I prevented an investor from making a terrible decision based on incomplete information. Elena's voice was steady, despite the guilt. If the Meridian acquisition had gone through and they'd discovered the problems later, it would have been worse. For everyone. Worse than this? Marissa gestured around the hospital. He's 58 years old and he just had a cardiac episode because his daughter stabbed him in the back. I didn't stab him in the back. I protected my firm and told the truth to a potential investor. Those are different things. Are they? Because from where I'm standing, you prioritized your boutique architecture firm over your own father's life's work. You let your pride destroy everything he built. Elena felt something crack. His life's work was built on debt he couldn't service and projections he couldn't meet. It was collapsing anyway. I just refused to go down with it. You could have helped him. You could have signed the integration agreement, shown solidarity, made the acquisition look stable. Instead, you walked away and told his secrets to strangers. Those secrets weren't mine to protect. They were lies he told investors. They were family business. No, Elena said, and her voice shook. They were his business. Prairie Sky is my business, and I'm not sacrificing what I built to cover up his mistakes. Marissa stared at her. I don't even recognize you anymore. Good. Maybe you're finally seeing me instead of who Dad wanted me to be. Before Marissa could respond, a doctor appeared. Family of Victor Voss? They both turned. The doctor was young, professional, holding a tablet. Mr. Voss is stable and resting. It wasn't a myocardial infarction, but he did experience acute cardiac stress. We're keeping him overnight for observation and will likely start him on medication to manage his blood pressure and stress levels. Can we see him? Marissa asked. Briefly, he needs rest, and please keep the conversation calm. Additional stress is the last thing he needs right now. They followed the doctor to a private room. Victor was in bed, looking smaller somehow, with an IV line and monitoring equipment surrounding him. His eyes opened when they entered. Elena, his voice was rough. You came. Of course I came. Elena moved closer, and the guilt was overwhelming. Dad, I'm sorry. I never wanted... You wanted independence, Victor interrupted. You got it. Congratulations. My company is falling apart, and I'm in a hospital bed, but you got what you wanted. The words hit like stones. Elena's throat closed. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Victor's laugh was bitter. I gave you everything. Seed money, connections, opportunities. And the moment I needed your support, you turned on me. I didn't turn on you. I refused to let you absorb my company to cover your financial problems. Same thing. It's not. Victor closed his eyes. Just go, Elena. You made your choice. Live with it. Mr. Voss, the doctor interjected gently, I need you to stay calm. But Elena was already backing toward the door. Ryan's hand found her elbow, steadying her. Marissa stayed by their father's bedside, holding his hand, shooting Elena a look that was pure accusation. In the hallway, Elena couldn't breathe. She made it to the stairwell before the tears came. Angry, frustrated, guilty tears that she couldn't stop. Ryan didn't try to fix it. He just stood there, present and solid, while she cried. "He's right," Elena choked out. "I destroyed him." "No, he destroyed himself. You just refused to be collateral damage." Ryan's voice was quiet, but certain. "Elena, listen to me. Your father is a grown man who made risky business decisions for years. Those decisions caught up with him. That's not your fault. He's in the hospital because he's been under enormous stress trying to maintain an unsustainable business model. That's a consequence of his choices, not yours. I could have helped him by sacrificing your independence, by signing away your company. That's not help. That's enabling his dysfunction at the cost of your future." Ryan's hand settled on her shoulders. "You're allowed to protect yourself, even from family, especially from family." Elena wiped her eyes, trying to pull herself together. "I need air." They went outside to a courtyard, found a bench away from the emergency entrance. Elena sat there feeling hollowed out, exhausted by the whiplash from morning triumph to afternoon crisis. Her phone buzzed. "Michael Chen. Heard about your father. If you need to delay the partnership kickoff, we understand. Family comes first." Elena stared at the message. Part of her wanted to delay, wanted to fix things with her father, wanted to make everything okay before moving forward. But she knew that pattern. That was how she'd spent her whole life, putting her needs on hold to manage her father's expectations. She typed back, "Thank you for the consideration, but I don't need to delay. Prairie Sky is ready to move forward on schedule." Ryan read over her shoulder. "You sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They sat there until Elena felt steady enough to stand, then drove back to the office in silence. Marcus took one look at her face and disappeared to get coffee. Ryan pulled up a chair next to her desk. "Talk to me," he said. "About what?" "About whatever you're feeling, because you just went from a major professional victory to a family crisis in under 2 hours, and you're not processing any of it." Elena laughed, sharp and exhausted. "What's to process? I won. I also possibly destroyed my relationship with my father and contributed to a medical emergency. Both things are true. Your father's medical emergency is not your fault. You keep saying that because it keeps being true." Ryan leaned forward. "Elena, I've seen this pattern before. Controlling people create crises when they lose control. Sometimes the crisis is financial, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's medical. But it's always designed to pull you back in, make you feel responsible, make you compromise to fix the crisis they created." "You think he faked a cardiac episode?" "No, but I think the stress that caused it came from his own choices, not yours. And I think he's going to use it as leverage to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself." Elena knew he was right. She could already feel the manipulation working, the guilt, the doubt, the voice in her head saying a good daughter would have prevented this. "I don't know how to turn off the guilt," she admitted. "You don't turn it off. You just stop letting it make your decisions." Ryan's expression was serious. "You can feel bad about your father's situation and still maintain your boundaries. Those aren't mutually exclusive." Elena nodded slowly. "How did you learn this?" "Therapy. Lots of therapy, after my divorce." Ryan smiled slightly. "My ex-wife was very good at creating crises that were somehow always my responsibility to fix. Took me a while to recognize the pattern." "Did you fix it?" "The marriage? No. That was unfixable. But I learned to stop taking responsibility for her choices. That fixed me." They sat in silence for a while. Marcus returned with coffee and pastries, set them down without commentary, and went back to his desk. The office slowly returned to normal rhythms, the hum of computers, the scratch of pencils on paper, the familiar sounds of work. Elena's phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "This is Jim Castellano. Heard you got the Meridian deal. I'm in. Let's talk terms." She showed Ryan. He grinned. "That's a yes. You've got your construction manager." "We've got our construction manager," Elena corrected. This only works because you're part of it. I'm consultant. You're the architect. This is your win. It's our win. Elena stood, feeling some of the heaviness lift. Come on, we have work to do. Over the next week, Elena threw herself into building the Riverside team. She hired 2 experienced architects from competing firms, both hungry for the challenge of a major sustainable project. She signed Jim Castellano to a construction management contract with terms that made him financially invested in the project's success. She negotiated with Meridian's legal team over partnership agreement details, holding firm on creative control while accepting reasonable oversight provisions. Her father's condition stabilized. He was released from the hospital with medication and strict orders to reduce stress. Marissa kept Elena updated through terse text messages that made it clear she was still furious. Victor himself didn't contact her at all. Elena told herself she was fine with that. She was busy. She had work to do. She didn't have time for family drama. But at night, alone in her apartment, the guilt came back. And the questions. Had she been too harsh? Too rigid? Could she have found a middle ground that protected Prairie Sky without destroying Voss development? Ryan, who'd temporarily moved to town to help with the Meridian transition, kept showing up with coffee and reality checks. Stop second-guessing, he said one evening when he found her staring at her phone, thumb hovering over Marissa's number. You made the right call. Your father's recovery is not contingent on you sacrificing your boundaries. You don't know that. I know that adults are responsible for managing their own health. I know that stress-related cardiac issues are caused by chronic patterns, not single decisions. I know that your father could have chosen transparency and sustainable business practices, and he didn't. Ryan took the phone from her hands. You're not his parent. You're not his savior. You're his daughter, and you're allowed to protect yourself. What if he never forgives me? Then that's his choice, and it'll be sad and complicated and painful, but it won't make you wrong. Elena wanted to believe him. She was trying to believe him. The partnership agreement with Meridian was finalized on a Friday afternoon. Elena signed it in her office surrounded by her team, Marcus, the 2 new architects, Ryan and Jim Castellano, who'd driven in from Billings for the occasion. They took pictures with the signed documents, ordered champagne they drank from coffee mugs because the office didn't have proper glasses, and allowed themselves one evening of celebration before the real work began. Ryan's phone buzzed during the toast. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted. What? Elena asked. My sister. Lily's school called. She's sick. I need to get back to Denver. He looked genuinely torn. I'm sorry. I know the project kickoff meeting is Monday. Family comes first, Elena said immediately. Go. We'll manage. You sure? Positive. Go take care of your daughter. Ryan gathered his things quickly, gave Elena a brief, unexpected hug. You've got this. You know that, right? I'm starting to believe it. Good. Keep believing it. He headed for the door, then paused. Elena? For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, for fighting back, for protecting what you built, for refusing to compromise when everyone was telling you to. Then he was gone, and Elena stood in her office feeling the weight and possibility of what came next. The Riverside project officially launched the following Monday. Meridian's development team, Prairie Sky's architects, Jim Castellano's construction crew, and various consultants filled a conference room for the kickoff meeting. Elena presented the master timeline, walked everyone through phased deliverables, established communication protocols and decision-making hierarchies. She'd given versions of this speech before, on smaller projects, but this time felt different. This time she was speaking as the lead architect on a major development, not as Victor Voss's daughter trying to prove herself worthy of her last name. This time, the respect in the room was earned. The meeting ran 3 hours. By the end, everyone had clear assignments, understood expectations, and knew the project's critical path. As people filtered out, Michael Chen pulled Elena aside. Strong start, he said. You presented with real authority. That's good to see. Thank you. I hope the execution matches the presentation. It will. You've got the right team. Chen paused. I heard about your father. Voss Development is filing for Chapter 11 restructuring. I wanted you to hear it from me before it hits the news. Elena absorbed the information, feeling the familiar guilt try to rise up. She pushed it back down. I appreciate you telling me. For what it's worth, I don't think you caused this. From what our forensic audit uncovered, his company was heading for collapse anyway. Your decision to walk away just accelerated the timeline. Chen's expression was sympathetic. I know that doesn't make it easier. No, but it helps. After Chen left, Elena sat alone in the conference room for a while, processing. Her father's company was bankrupt. Everything he'd built, gone. And she'd played a role in that, however unintentionally. But Prairie Sky was thriving. Her team was solid. Her biggest project was launching successfully. Both things were true. She didn't know how to hold them both yet. But she was learning. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. How'd the kickoff go? Elena smiled and typed back, strong. We're officially underway. How's Lily? Strep throat. She's dramatically miserable, but she'll survive. She drew you another picture. It's a building with your name on it. Tell her I love it. And thank you. For what? For reminding me that protecting what you build is worth the cost. Always. Talk soon. Elena gathered her things and left the conference room. There was work waiting, designs to refine, contractors to coordinate, 100 decisions that would shape the Riverside project over the next 3 years. She was ready for it. More than ready. For the first time in her life, she was building something entirely on her own terms. And that was worth every difficult choice she'd made to get here. 6 months into the Riverside project, Elena stood on the construction site watching the foundation work and feeling something close to peace. The morning air was sharp with autumn cold, carrying the sounds of heavy machinery and shouted instructions across the lot. Jim Castellano was arguing with a concrete supplier about delivery schedules, his voice carrying across the site with practiced authority. Her team was inside the construction trailer reviewing revised mechanical drawings. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned, which meant they were only slightly behind schedule instead of catastrophically so. Her phone buzzed. Marissa. Can we meet? Just us. No agenda. I miss my sister. Elena stared at the message for a long time. They hadn't spoken properly since the hospital, only terse exchanges about their father's health and business affairs. Marissa had made her position clear. Elena had destroyed the family, chosen ambition over loyalty, and broken their father's heart. Elena had stopped trying to defend herself after the third identical conversation. But now Marissa wanted to meet. No agenda. Elena typed back, Coffee tomorrow? Mountain Grounds, 10 a.m. The response came immediately. I'll be there. The next morning, Elena arrived early and claimed the same corner table where so much had changed 6 months ago. When Marissa walked in, Elena was struck by how tired her sister looked. The polished corporate armor was still there, but something underneath had shifted. Thanks for meeting me, Marissa said, sitting down with coffee she'd ordered at the counter. I wasn't sure you would. You said you missed me. I miss you too. Elena kept her voice neutral. How's Dad? Surviving. The bankruptcy restructuring is brutal, but his lawyers think they can salvage something. He's selling off the subsidiaries, paying down the worst debt, trying to build something smaller and sustainable. Marissa wrapped her hands around her cup. He asks about you. Never directly, but he asks. What do you tell him? That you're thriving, that Riverside is ahead of schedule, that Prairie Sky just landed 2 more major contracts. Marissa's smile was complicated. It kills him a little every time, but I think part of him is proud, even if he'll never admit it. Elena's throat tightened. I never wanted to destroy him. I know. I was angry for a long time. I blamed you for everything. Marissa looked down at her coffee. But I've been going through Voss Development's old files as part of the bankruptcy proceedings. Elena, the financial problems went back years, long before the Meridian deal, long before your Riverside proposal. Dad was leveraging everything, borrowing from subsidiaries, using creative accounting to hide the gaps. She looked up. You didn't destroy the company. You just refused to go down with it. The words were so close to what Ryan had said that Elena almost laughed. Took you 6 months to figure that out? Took me 6 months to look at the actual evidence instead of just believing Dad's version. Marissa's voice was quiet. He's very good at making his problems everyone else's responsibility. I've been doing it too. Taking on his stress, managing his crises, sacrificing my own judgment to support his decisions. She paused. Watching you walk away was the first time I realized that was a choice. that I could choose differently. Are you? Trying to. I quit Voss Development last month. Told Dad I needed space to figure out what I actually want instead of just managing his empire. Marissa laughed, shaky. He didn't take it well. But I'm starting to understand why you did what you did. Why you had to. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. Not quite forgiveness, but maybe understanding. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know. And I'm sorry I made it harder by attacking you instead of supporting you. Marissa reached across the table, tentative. I don't know if we can fix this completely, but I'd like to try. If you're willing. Elena took her sister's hand. Yeah, I'm willing. They talked for 2 hours, slowly rebuilding the connection that had fractured under the weight of their father's expectations. It wasn't perfect. There were still raw places, still disagreements about what had happened and why, but it was honest in a way their relationship hadn't been in years. When they finally left, Marissa hugged her. I'm proud of you, for fighting back, for protecting what you built. I should have said that 6 months ago. You're saying it now. That's what matters. Elena drove back to the construction site, feeling lighter than she had in months. The foundation work was nearly complete, steel framing would start next week, and the project was tracking toward a winter completion for Phase 1. Michael Chen's oversight team had backed off after the first 3 months of flawless execution, trusting Prairie Sky to manage without constant supervision. Ryan was waiting at the site trailer when she arrived, laptop open and spreadsheets glowing on the screen. He'd been commuting from Denver every other week to consult on the financial management, bringing Lily with him when school allowed. The kid had become the unofficial site mascot, asking questions that made the construction workers laugh and drawing elaborate plans for imaginary buildings during lunch breaks. How'd it go with your sister? Ryan asked. Better than expected. She quit working for my father. She's trying to figure out who she is outside of his expectations. Elena sat down across from him. She apologized for not supporting me, for choosing his version of events over mine. That's big. It is. Elena looked at the spreadsheets. What are you working on? Budget projections for Phase 2. We're under budget on foundation work, which gives us some cushion for the environmental systems installation. Ryan turned the laptop toward her. I'm also working on something else. A proposal. For what? For me to move here. Permanently. Ryan's expression was careful, unreadable. I've been commuting for 6 months. It's getting complicated with Lily's school, with my other clients, with everything. And I keep thinking, what I'm doing here with Prairie Sky, helping build something from the ground up, watching you create a firm that operates with integrity, this is the work I actually want to be doing. Elena's pulse quickened. You want to join Prairie Sky? As CFO. Full-time position, equity stake in the firm, complete financial oversight for all projects. Ryan's voice was steady, but she could hear the vulnerability underneath. You need someone managing the business side while you focus on design. I need work that actually matters instead of auditing companies that are trying to hide their failures. This could work, if you want it to. Elena thought about the last 6 months. Ryan had been essential, not just his financial expertise, but his steady presence, his refusal to let her spiral into doubt, his ability to see the systems clearly and help her navigate them. He'd become part of Prairie Sky's foundation as surely as the concrete being poured on the Riverside site. Yes, she said, I want it to. But what about Lily? What about uprooting her life? I've been talking to her about it. She's excited. She likes it here. She likes watching the buildings go up. She likes you. Ryan's smile was slight, genuine. She told me last week that you're brave because you fight for things even when you're scared. Coming from a 7-year-old, that's pretty high praise. Elena felt her eyes sting. I'd be lucky to have you both. We'd be lucky to have this, a firm built on actual values instead of corporate politics, work that means something. Ryan closed his laptop. So yeah, if you're offering, I'm accepting. I'm offering. They shook hands formally, then both laughed at the absurdity of it. Then Ryan pulled out a draft contract he'd already prepared because, of course he had, and they spent the rest of the afternoon negotiating terms that were fair to both of them. By the time they finished, Prairie Sky Design had its first full-time CFO, and Elena had a partner who understood both the work and the woman building it. The next 18 months passed in a blur of construction milestones and business growth. Phase 1 of Riverside opened to significant media coverage. Sustainable design meets practical luxury, exactly as Elena had envisioned. Phase 2 broke ground ahead of schedule. Prairie Sky won a regional architecture award for innovative environmental integration. Elena hired 4 more architects, moved the firm into proper office space, and started fielding inquiries from developers across the state. Victor's restructured company emerged from bankruptcy smaller, but stable. He'd sold off the risky subsidiaries, paid down the debt, and was building a modest development operation focused on residential projects. Elena heard about it through Marissa, who'd started her own consulting firm helping small businesses with strategic planning. They had lunch once a month now, rebuilding their relationship piece by piece. Victor himself still hadn't contacted Elena directly. But one afternoon, 18 months after she'd walked out of the investor dinner, a letter arrived at Prairie Sky's office, handwritten, which was unusual for her father. Elena sat alone in her office and opened it. "Elena, I've been trying to write this for months. I'm not good at apologies. You know that, but I owe you one. You were right about the financial leverage, about the unsustainable growth, about the integration agreement being a trap. I knew it at the time. I just couldn't admit it, not even to myself. I'd spent so many years building an empire that I forgot to make sure the foundation was solid. When it started collapsing, I tried to use you as a support beam. That was wrong. What you did, walking away, telling Chen the truth, protecting Prairie Sky, that took courage I didn't have. You saw the system clearly and refused to be destroyed by it. I should have taught you that. Instead, I taught you to compromise yourself for other people's comfort. I'm glad you unlearned that lesson. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I'm saying it now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know if I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that watching you build Prairie Sky into something real and sustainable and honest has been humbling. You became the architect I always claimed to be, but never actually was. If you're ever willing to have coffee, I'd like to hear about your work, not as your father trying to control you, just as someone who respects what you've built. With love, Dad." Elena read the letter 3 times, feeling complicated things she didn't have names for. It wasn't perfect. It didn't fix everything, but it was honest in a way her father had never been before. She picked up her phone, typed carefully. "Coffee. Next Tuesday? Mountain Grounds, 10 a.m. His response came an hour later. "I'll be there. Thank you." The meeting was awkward at first. Victor looked older, smaller somehow, without the corporate armor and manufactured confidence. They ordered coffee, sat at a corner table, and struggled through small talk until Elena cut through it. "I read your letter. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would." Victor wrapped his hands around his cup, a gesture that reminded Elena painfully of Marissa. "Tell me about Riverside. I've been following the coverage. The design is extraordinary." They talked about the project for an hour, the challenges, the successes, the moments when Elena had to fight to protect the sustainability metrics from budget pressure. Victor listened without trying to fix or advise or take credit. Just listened, asked good questions, and occasionally offered observations that came from genuine experience rather than ego. When they were done, he didn't ask for forgiveness or try to rebuild what had broken. He just said, "I'm glad you didn't let me destroy this. What you're building matters." "It does," Elena agreed, "and I'm glad I fought for it, even though it cost us time. Time we're getting back now, if you're willing." "I am, slowly, with boundaries." "Boundaries are good," Victor said, and almost smiled. "I'm learning that." They didn't become close again overnight, but they started meeting monthly, carefully rebuilding something that looked less like father controlling daughter and more like 2 architects respecting each other's work. It wasn't what Elena had wanted as a child, but it was honest, and maybe that was better. 2 years after the investor dinner that changed everything, Elena stood at the Riverside site watching the final phase near completion. The development was everything she'd envisioned. Commercial space that flowed naturally into residential units, green spaces that weren't afterthoughts but integrated design elements, sustainability metrics that actually worked in practice. Ryan stood beside her, Lily between them holding both their hands. The kid was 9 now, taller, still asking impossible questions but also starting to understand the answers. It's really big, Lily said, staring up at the buildings. Just like I drew.
It is, Elena agreed. We built it together. Are you going to build more big things? Probably, if people keep asking us to. Good, Lily said decisively. The world needs more buildings that don't hurt the earth. Ryan laughed, ruffled his daughter's hair. Where'd you learn that? From Elena. She says buildings should make things better, not worse. Lily looked up at Elena. You're still brave, just so you know. Elena crouched down to Lily's level. You know what I learned? Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the thing anyway, because it matters. Is that why you fight with your dad but still have coffee with him? Kids saw everything. Elena glanced at Ryan, who was trying not to smile. Yeah, that's exactly why. Because family is complicated, but it still matters. So you figure out how to make it work without losing yourself. That sounds hard? It is hard, but worth it. They walked through the completed sections of Riverside together, Elena pointing out design details, while Lily asked questions and Ryan quietly documented everything for Prairie Sky's portfolio. The sun was setting over the mountains, casting long shadows across the development, and Elena thought about all the fights it had taken to get here. The confrontations, the boundaries, the refusal to compromise what mattered. She'd lost things along the way, her father's approval for a while, her relationship with Marissa temporarily, the security of operating under Voss Development's established infrastructure. But she'd gained something more important. She'd learned that protecting what you build is worth the cost, that integrity matters more than comfort, that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away from systems designed to consume you. Prairie Sky was thriving now. 5 major projects in development, a team of 12 talented architects, a reputation for sustainable design that prioritized both environmental and human needs. Elena had built something that was entirely hers, and it had cost her everything and given her more than she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed. Michael Chen. Riverside looking spectacular. Meridian wants to discuss 3 more projects when you have capacity. No rush. Just wanted you to know we're believers. Elena showed Ryan. He grinned. 3 more projects. You're going to need to hire again. We're going to need to hire again, Elena corrected. This is ours now. Both of us. All 3 of us, Lily interjected. I'm going to be an architect too when I grow up. I already decided. Then we better teach you everything we know, Elena said. They left the site as the last construction workers were finishing their shifts, trucks rumbling away into the evening. Elena looked back once at Riverside, her first major project, her proof that independence was possible, her evidence that fighting back could actually win. Then she turned toward home, toward the life she'd built outside her father's shadow, toward the firm that operated on her values instead of inherited compromise. It wasn't perfect. Work never was. But it was hers, built stone by stone through decisions that cost her but never broke her. And that, Elena thought, was worth every difficult choice she'd made to get here.